Well, hello everybody and welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast. Today's topic is supporting a remote workforce. And I can tell that it's going to be a good day because I'm already seeing people posting thought-provoking questions and ideas and concepts in our chat. So I love that. We are getting rolling early today. I want to start by saying a big thank you to for joining us because this is going to be an absolutely fascinating conversation all around the transformation of work. We're going to talk about workforce and workplace engagement, the changing nature of work, and more. A lot of these things that we're hearing about that we're feeling the effects of on the daily. On the EcoCast today, we've got some of the most innovative leading companies in the industry. You're going to be hearing from experts at Synology, StrongDM, Axis, Catchpoint, Okta, Duo Security, Glean, and Teleport. Now, for those of you counting along with me at home, that was 8 different sessions full of innovative solutions, hot workforce transformation trends, and creative strategies, all here in one place. So this is going to be an absolutely incredible day. I hope that you are all as pumped up as I am. Now, in order for you to get the most out of your day today, I'm going to cover a few housekeeping things. Of course, we do have some of those awesome prizes lined up for you. I'm going to come back to those in just one moment, but stay with me here. First, I want to draw your attention over to the questions box in your webinar control panel. Now, if you have not already said hi, there is a huge audience out there today, so reach out, give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Feel free to throw some questions out there. I saw Harvey taking advantage of that already, and Jorge as well. Now, that questions tab is also a great place to reach out to the Actual Tech Media crew. If you're having any problems or issues, the technical kinds anyways, you can shoot us a message there. Now, I do want to remind you that a browser refresh will clear out any of the usual glitches in the matrix, but if that does not work, just shoot us a message and the Actual Tech Media team is there to support. Now, we also want this to be an informative webinar for you, which means that we want to see those technical questions. So throughout today's webinar, we hope you'll get engaged and get involved in the discussion. Not only will we have team members responding to you during the live webinar, we also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of each presentation. Now, if we do not get to your question during the live webinar, if you've been here for these before, you know they go fast, but don't worry because the awesome humans from Synology, StrongDM, Axis, Catchpoint, Okta, Duo Security, Glean, and Teleport will be following up with you afterwards. Now, hey, we all know that good things should be shared. So today on the EcoCast, when you hear that cool, exciting, awesome thing that kind of tickles your brain a little bit, you can use that Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's webinar is going to be automatically added to your post. You don't even have to do anything. We'll hashtag it for you. And while you're exploring that audience console, make sure to check out the Handouts tab. You're going to find some fantastic resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We've got an info pack collection, solutions brief, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So click around in that handout section, download, check out some of those awesome resources. For those of you I haven't met yet, my name is Jess Steinbach with Actual Tech Media. I'm so happy to be your moderator for our discussions today. We are extra lucky because Scott Becker is going to be here in just a moment for a very special keynote, and the wonderful David Davis is here on live chat. So you get the whole crew. Now, as always, it is not just awesome content we're giving away. Now, you may have seen when you signed up that we had 3 $500 Amazon gift cards available as prizes today, but if you see up on your screen there, we're going to up the ante a little bit for you all because we're actually going to be adding a 4th $500 Amazon gift card. See, I told you this was going to be an exciting day. Now, as a reminder, you must be in attendance during the live webinar to qualify for these prizes, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. If you're not sure what those are, no problem. I don't expect you to have those memorized. Head on over to the Handouts tab, click in, scroll down to the bottom, and you can find the full T's and C's waiting for you there. Now, I'm also going to remind you that we have the best question card. I mentioned earlier that we love getting those questions in. In fact, we love it so much, we have this special additional prize for you. And this is at the end of each session, so if you remember, that's 8 additional chances to win. Now, it does not matter if we ask your question during the live session. We're reviewing all the questions asked after we wrap, so get your questions in, and then we'll follow up with you after the webinar and let you know if you've won that best question asked. Now, I've got a few little reminders up on the screen for you here. Just some kind of T's and C's, including the fact that all prize winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media. And if you are a winner here today and you're interested in donating the value of your prize, you can send that to one of the selected charities you see up on the screen here. Now, thanks to generous prize winners on previous Actual Tech Media webinars, thousands of dollars have already been donated to these wonderful organizations. So if you're a lucky winner, you want to get involved, please do let us know. We would love to help make that happen. And one last fun way to win a prize is to refer an industry friend or coworker to the actual Tech Media webinar series. You're going to find a link to do that right there in that Handouts tab. Keep coming back to the Handouts tab. It's a cool place. I'm telling you, go check it out. And you're automatically going to get redirected at the end of the webinar as well. Now, one thing, you've heard me say this before, I just want to make sure I repeat it. We're not going to harass your friends or your coworkers. That's such an important detail. We're going to send them an invite to a list of upcoming events. If they don't accept, we send them one reminder, and that's it. Then they're off our list. We will not message them again. Then you and the person you've referred could win a $300 Amazon gift card. We hold those drawings every month, so be sure to think of somebody awesome before you head out today and send them an invite. Okay, well, we've covered a lot of really important things, and normally I would slow down, catch my breath, do a little chit-chat here, but I really can't wait to get into our special edition keynote today, and we've got a lot to cover. So I am going to pause and hop on with Scott Becker. Hang tight.
Well, hi, Scott, and thank you so much for coming to hang out with all of us here today and to kick off this exciting EcoCast.
Hey, Jess, thanks for having me on.
You know, I was just chatting with the audience about this, Scott, but I have to say, I am genuinely pumped up to be part of this conversation with you all because I find the whole topic around the changing nature of work, workforce transformation, workplace engagement, all of it, it's just fascinating. And, you know, there was a time not too long ago when a lot of these more innovative changes and strategies had possibly been on our wish list. You know, it was a nice to have, it was a vision or a goal for the future. And then along came 2020, and the wish list for workforce transformation became the to-do list. So now here we are in 2022. Oh man, almost 2023, Scott. And workforces are remote, they're hybrid, they're digital, they're flexible, they're agile, they're distributed, and whatever else you want to call it. Now here at Actual Tech Media, we are what I like to call remote native. We are now, and we have always been a remote team, which I have to say does make some things run a little bit smoother. And if you'll allow me a quick shout out to our crew here, I think the team does a pretty great job navigating things like engagement, communication, accountability, a lot of the other usual suspects for high stress situations. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've got a lot of experience here on this team with the remote native environment, and you know, a lot of insights about it.
Yeah, and also a lot of experience with people who have been in maybe more traditional workplaces and now moved remote. So that's a really interesting perspective. And we are all about learning from expert viewpoints and different perspectives here. So Scott and David and I asked some of the awesome humans at Actual Tech Media to share their top working remote tip and top working remote tool that has maybe made their remote lives a little bit easier and better. So Scott and I have collected some of our favorite responses here, and we want to take you through them. Scott, you ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's start with our fearless leader, the one and the only Mr. Scott Lowe. So Scott says, everyone needs to stay on top of information security training. It can be easy to push aside, but depending on how the remote workforce is accessing systems, there are more potential points of infiltration, so awareness is critical. I love this point. Here at Actual Tech Media, we stay very up to date on our training. Some of us more than others, you know who you are. And the leadership team is constantly reviewing those needs and constantly reviewing the access points as well as the training that goes along with them. Now, for a tool here, Scott says a communication platform like Teams or Slack is not optional in a remote environment, or hey, even in a physical one anymore. It provides the glue that holds everyone together and makes remote teams work. This is so true. I wish we had a little bit more time to dig into some of the best practices for how to go about, you know, really engaging your team over these channels. We don't today, but stay tuned because we might be able to revisit it in December at our HR Tech Summit. So come on back for that. And in the meantime, let's move along here.
Yeah, and Scott's comment about training made my hands sweat a little bit. I think I'm a couple of months behind on my ransomware training. But we have a one from our fellow moderator, David Davis. This is a really good tip and a good tool. So David says, spend time educating remote staff on the variety of tools available to them and their value, as without education around the tools are a wasted investment and employee productivity is lost. This is so true about remote environments. You've really got to focus on the training because people aren't picking up tips, you know, over other people's shoulders, or, you know, stopping somebody in the hallway and saying, hey, how do you do this or that? It's really important to sort of formalize that training. And then for tools, David says office collaboration tools like Office 365 or Google Workspace. These save a huge amount of time, but don't forget about the education, and ensure the environment is more supportable and more secure thanks to centralized management. I don't know where we would be without, in our case, Office 365.
Yeah, you're right. That's the number of times that you and I are connecting on a project. This keynote included, Scott, over those tools it's key. It's a really important part of our day. That, to David's point, started with education. I'm going to jump to next up. We're going to hear from our awesome CMO and co-founder, and that's Jordy Carswell. Jordy says, have office hours that overlap at least at some point in the day, especially if you have team members in different time zones. Now, this is so key. Our team here is largely in the US and Canada, but even still, we span 3-4 time zones. So it is really important to know. And especially if you have teams that might start to be in an international platform, are there certain hours during the day, even if it's only 1 or 2 hours during the day, that that you're all kind of online together at the same time. And those hours are when you want to schedule meetings, when you're looking for responses back, when you can count on that productivity push. So really important to establish that ahead of time, especially if you feel a little guilty sending people invites and realizing you've invited them at 6 in the morning or 6 at night. So checking on those time zones is really important. Now, the tool that Jordy suggests here, use Loom or another screen share recording tool to share information asynchronously when time zones make for gaps and where hopping on a call to screen share may not be possible. Now, I love this point. Some of you may have come across this in maybe higher education platforms, that you have classes that can be either synchronous or asynchronous. So when you're planning for a meeting, one potential option is to think about whether or not it actually does need to be a synchronous meeting. Now, if you're brainstorming, maybe that's a little easier to do altogether. But if it's something where you could potentially disseminate some of the information ahead of time via a recording and then send that out, ask the team to review in their time, collect their thoughts, do a little thinking, and then maybe contribute together on a doc or in a Teams chat, whatever format works for you, or potentially even book that follow-up meeting, but now it's 45 minutes shorter because that information has already gotten across and you can jump right into the meat of it. So this is a great thought and a great tip and tool from Jordy here. All right, Scott, let's hear from
I've got to take a note to check out Loom. I haven't tried that one.
Yeah, it's a cool program.
So this next one comes from Keith Ward, who's a senior editor and writer here at Actual Tech. And his tip is gather everyone together occasionally in person to maintain and build those relationships that mostly exist online. And this one is so important, for us, we had a lot of growth during the COVID period. So a lot of people came on in a period where we couldn't meet even as a virtual team. But it's so helpful and so productive to get everybody together now and again. In some ways, when you're a remote group working, those meetings can be like supercharged because people haven't been together, and then they get together and there's all kinds of brainstorming that happens kind of well in excess of what happens in a normal hallway or normal week by week on premises kind of meeting. And then Keith's tool suggestion is Asana or another project management tool that's essential for making sure that tasks don't fall through the cracks. Asana is critical to us here.
Yeah. And that's such a great point. The supercharged connection points. I think we all just experienced that. Our team just got to spend some time together in person, many of us for the first time. And I think those few days we not only hammered through, some incredible revisions and upgrades and enhancements to processes and systems and communication strategies very quickly and in a fun way, but we also just really enjoyed getting to know each other as humans. And I, speaking for myself, I think for you as well, Scott, it makes a lot of our time in the chats that we're having now that much more fun and engaging because we know a little bit more about who we are as people and not just the 2D face on the screen. So I do highly recommend that. Now, if it's not possible for you to get your entire team together in one spot, try maybe smaller groups, but that is a good thing to prioritize. We'll move along here because next up is the amazing and talented Natasha Rogers. Now, I'm not just saying nice things about her because she is our team lead. She is very much amazing and talented. She is also the director of webinar programs here at Actual Tech Media. Natasha says, Over communicate. This does not mean micromanaging people, very important, but rather being proactive in your communication with teammates. The things that you may casually mention or overhear in an office just aren't an option when you're remote. So if you think, I should probably let X know about Y, the answer is almost always yes. Yes, you should. So I love that. That is a great distinction between communication and micromanagement, and that, comes a little bit more into team culture. But a really, really great point there. Now, her tool is the communication piece ties into tools as well. So using a project management, team communication, and data sharing / storage tool is so important, but also making sure that they are always updated with the most up-to-date information. So having a central source of truth is extremely helpful, especially when working in different cities, countries, and there it is again, time zones. And one thing I have to give a high five to Natasha. She's not on mic, so I can say all kinds of nice things about her. Natasha does an incredible job of watching these platforms for when they're coming out with new updates. So, David mentioned earlier that education is really key. You're wasting money on a tool if you're not educating your team. You're also kind of losing some of your value if you're not staying up to date on the new updates that the tool, the solution might be releasing. So Natasha's always keeping an eye on that. She takes a look to see whether or not we can benefit from it. And then she rolls it out again, coming back to that education point to make sure we actually understand how to use it. So I think I'd have to give a high five to her on that one there.
Yeah, so this next tip comes from another one of our partners, James Green, and I think it relates a little bit back to what Jordy Carswell was talking about with, sort of the core hours. James' tip is use your mail client's send later feature to go ahead and send that email now, even though it's 7 p.m. in the recipient's time zone. And what he's saying here is that, that'll have it delivered first thing in the morning when they'll actually be at their desk. And it's wise in two ways. One is that it's, you're not communicating that you expect them to respond at 7 p.m. because they never see it until the next morning. And then it also makes it more likely that you're going to get a response, because if you sent it at 7 and they saw it at 8 while they were, out at dinner somewhere, that message will have been read. And then they may forget about it by the time they're back in the office and it's, and it's time for them to actually respond. So wise advice there from James. James's tool is crisp.ai, and this is a really interesting tool. So James points out that the free version has, it'll erase your barking dog, construction on the road outside your house, your air conditioner running, and all the other nuisance noise from your video call. James has a lot of experience with those nuisance noises, so I love his detail there. I'll also point out that, for platforms that don't allow a background, like, Zoom or Teams will let you put backgrounds in. Some won't. I think some of the paid versions of the paid, tiers of Crisp will let you put in your own version or your own background, inside your camera.
Yeah, that's a great tool, and I think we've all had that unfortunate barking dog construction mid-meeting experience. So nice to have that option. I love this point from Lindsay. So this is Lindsay Dyro. She's a sales coordinator here at Actual Tech Media. She says, understand that everyone doesn't work the same way or follow a strict 9 to 5 schedule. So as an employee, understand what is expected of you so that you can make sure that you are not only connecting with your coworkers, but obviously making your goals and timelines. And I think this is a really important point from two perspectives. I think as a leader, you want to make sure you're setting that expectation for your team. When do you expect them? We were talking earlier when Jordy was saying maybe have those set office hours, know what those office hours are and communicate to your team. Do you expect to hear back from them during those hours? Do you expect to hear back during a certain time frame? Or is it just, hey, get things done? And different companies have different approaches and different needs. Now, if you're on a team and you don't have that understanding, ask that question. What is our expectation? I feel like maybe I'm letting you down or maybe I'm exceeding, but, I don't know why on either scale. So understanding, what the expectations are means that you can meet them a little more readily. So that is a really important one and starts with that easy communication on your team there. And then we've got some last thoughts from the team here, which, Scott, I think you're going to take us through.
Yeah. So, one that I would add is just, if you are using a platform like Teams with a lot of different channels, it's really important to go in there and sort of prune those every now and again or consolidate them. Make sure that the structure of the channels there fits with the way that you're working now, as opposed to 6 months or a year ago when you were, when the channel maybe was first created. And then, just to reiterate a point that Natasha made that was so good, it's so critical to define where the source of truth is. So if people are online and they're checking different things like in Teams and Asana and maybe Dropbox, to know which one is actually, all right, this one is the source of truth and those others are derivative of it.
I love that. I think that's those are both awesome points. I feel like Teams channels are like bunny rabbits. They just multiply in the night. I don't know how that happens. So yes, we're constantly, that is one thing that's a good area for improvement for us too, is kind of keeping those a little clean. Well, Scott, I have to say this has been a blast as always chatting with you. I am so excited to get into our sessions today and learn even more of these tips and hear more about these tools from our expert presenters. Before we take off, I want to give a special thank you to the Actual Tech Media crew for some really wonderful answers here today. And to Scott, as always, thank you so much for joining me and hey, for being a great part of my remote work life.
Hey, back at you.
All right, well, let's get rolling.
Okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as we enjoyed kind of going through that. It's always fun to chat with our team about their experiences, and I'm glad we got to kind of share some of that with you. Now, we have a question up on the screen for you here, and this one's a little bit different. I'm just going to let you know, normally we don't see the results of the polls as they come in, but in this case, the next slide I'm going to show you is actually the results. So if you click right now, let everyone know what is your current workforce structure. We're going to click over in a second, and we will show you all what the result is from that poll. So you'll be able to see kind of what the general audience feel is to what their workforce setup is. So I saw out there, Patrick just posted that he's a fan of remote workforce, but also likes a little bit of a hybrid. So what we're wondering here is your team currently 100% remote? Are you hybrid, but you have set required days, like you have to be in on Monday or Tuesday, or even you have to be in 1 to 2 days a week, or whatever the case may be, or hybrid with a totally optional, so you can work at home, you can work in the office, it's up to you, have at her. Maybe you have a co-work space somewhere, that kind of option. Maybe you're 100% back in the office, or if it's something totally different, you don't fit into any of those boxes, then go ahead and let us know in the chat. All right, so I am going to move to the next slide here, and let's see what you guys all think. So it's looking to me like we're pretty solidly in the hybrid. So about 60-some% of those of you who responded combined are in a hybrid setup, either with required days or potentially, sort of at your leisure. And then we've got a big chunk of people that are remote and actually not too far behind back in the office. So that feels pretty indicative of where we're all at. Well, that's cool to see. All right, well, thank you to everyone who filled that poll out. I'm going to take us to one more quick poll before we get into our sessions here. We're curious about your time frame for adding new or updating existing IT solutions at your company. So today we are going to talk about solutions that are involved with supporting your remote workforce. So are you thinking you want to have this in the next month or two? Are you thinking maybe 6 months to a year? Are you thinking a year to 2 years? Or you really have no idea because this is all new to you and you're just starting to kind of explore and ideate. So take a quick moment and fill that out for us. I'm going to move us along a little faster than I normally do, because we're already a little bit behind in our sessions. We had a long keynote. Scott and I got on a roll there. So I'm going to move us along to our first presentation. Thank you to everyone who filled out that poll. I still see some answers trickling in, so I really appreciate those coming in. And you'll have more poll opportunities coming up soon. But it is my pleasure now to introduce you to our very first presenter in today's EcoCast. We're going to hear from Jessica Tsao, Technical Account Manager at Synology. Jessica, thank you so much for being here, getting us started on our EcoCast today. I'm going to hand the mic right on over to you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. Now, I'm excited to talk about a really cool topic with you, and that is remote file sync, storing and sharing larger files across locations. Now, remote work became more prominent since COVID hit, and a lot of businesses had to adjust their weekly operations to ensure their employees could efficiently work remote. I'm sure some of you may even follow a hybrid model, coming into the office a couple times a week, or even working fully remote and having certain applications you need to use to collaborate with your fellow colleagues. So where does Synology come in? How can we still maintain our operational efficiency and productivity as if we were all in the office with one another? So we'll dive into all of these questions today. Now, my name is Jessica, and I am a technical account manager with Synology's business development team. So for those of you who may not be as familiar with Synology, we are a company that specializes in data and disaster recovery. We have a range of solutions from data storage, backup, surveillance, and more, as well as unified hardware and software made in-house. And our overall goal is to not only manage and to protect your data, but also to keep you and your team operational. Now, I want to specifically focus on remote operations, and as many of you know, today more than ever, remote collaborations have become the new norm, making efficient file sharing and syncing absolutely necessary. So let's take a look at a case study of a sports film business that needed to tackle the remote sharing. So we have Matchsticks Productions, which is an award-winning action sports media house in the ski film industry. They also create video content and advertisements for global brands. Now, what was the challenge that they faced? Well, in action sports filmmaking, missing a single shot can impact weeks' worth of preparation and be a large drain on resources. So to avoid this, Matchstick essentially captures as much footage as possible while on the mountains. Now, this in turn produced massive problems for them. All right, a very obvious one is that they produce terabytes of data each year because videos can run very large. Secondly, when their editors needed content, they would have to physically go to the office to get the hard drive, find the files they needed, and load the project into the editing bay. If the content was needed for staff in the field, those files would need to be duplicated and physically sent to the editor. Their social media team also needed the raw footage, but sharing files through emails or the cloud relied on editors manually locating and uploading specific clips. And finally, creating backups of footage required physically duplicating each drive to an identical device, but the drives were stored in the same location, so in the event of a disaster, their footage would be destroyed. So as you can tell, there's a lot of moving parts to this, and a lot of that is manual and inefficient in day-to-day operations. So Matchstick needed a simple solution that could streamline collaboration, provide easy accessibility for their employees to remote in, and safeguard their business from data loss. So how could Synology help? All right, so let's break this down. You have editors working on large video files out of the same studio. Using the Synology NAS, they can connect via the local network to seamlessly download and upload these large video files. Now, how would this help you and your business, though? How would this even help Matchstick Productions? Well, there's many benefits to working on the local network. You can, 1, centralize all of your projects in one storage location. 2, you can easily and quickly access your files on the local network. And 3, anyone who works in the office can easily share files amongst each other. Now, going back to the case study, this would be a great solution for their social media team so they wouldn't need to share files via email or through the cloud. So they could easily access and collaborate with one another through the local network in the studio. But that brings us to the question of what about the editors who were in the field and needed access to the files? Well, there's 3 different remote file sharing options that we'll discuss. And the first is letting team members access the on-premise server remotely. This can be done with our license-free application called Synology Drive. So let's go back to our diagram. For any editors or staff who need access to those files, all they would need is an internet connection. So the way it works is that the Synology NAS will be the main storage of all of your data. And whenever data is edited, deleted, or modified, those files can be uploaded or downloaded straight from the NAS using Synology Drive as long as the user has an internet connection. So with that, let's go into a demonstration of remotely accessing files using Synology Drive. All right, so for those of you who may have not used Synology before, what you're seeing on the screen is DSM, or Disk Station Manager, which is the main interface of our Synology NAS units. Now, as I said earlier, Synology Drive is one of our license-free applications available on DSM, and you can download it from Package Center, where you can also download our other license-free applications as well. Now for the purpose of this demo, I've already downloaded Synology Drive for us. So in clicking on the application, you're brought to the web portal of Synology Drive. And here you'll be able to see all of the folders connected to the team folder. Now I've already created a sample folder for us called just_tests. And when you click on it, you'll be able to see all of the files that I've already uploaded. Now, the first thing I wanted to show you is how to create a folder. Well, you go to create here, click folder, and then you can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it Synology. Click OK, and then you can see it creates a Synology folder for us. You can also upload. Just going to this upward facing arrow, you can upload files, upload folders, or upload files from the NAS. Another thing is sharing files amongst your peers. All you need to do is click on the file that you want to share, right-click, and then you're brought to this screen here where you can edit permissions. You can copy the file link, mail the file link, and set the privacy settings. So anyone internal with an account can view or edit that file. You can also invite specific users or groups to view, preview, edit, or manage that file. Now, let's say you want someone from outside of your organization to be able to access the file. You go to the public link tab up here, and then create a public link to share files with anyone. You can set the privacy settings so anyone with a link can view or edit that file. And then you can also add password protection. So anytime you require a password, only users with that password will be able to access that file. You can also set a link expiration, so anyone with that link will be able to access that link up until an expiration date. And here you can also copy a public link and mail the public link as well. So the web portal is a great way for IT admin users to be able to see what's been uploaded or downloaded, as well as even recover files that may have been accidentally deleted, for example. If they want to recover a file that's been deleted, they go to the recycle bin here, click the correct folder, and then you'll be able to see all of the files that have been deleted, all of the folders that have been deleted, and anytime you want to recover something specific, you just click on it and then click this restore button up here. All right, and then let's say your company has certain permissions and you don't want your users to be able to access the web portal. Well, there's the option for a desktop client as well. So I already have downloaded the desktop client, as you can see here, and I already connected a sample folder to it. When I click on that sample folder, you'll see that it looks similar to what we were looking at in the web portal. All right, and then you get similar functionality to the web portal as well. So anytime you want to be able to share the link, you can certainly do that. And you'll see that it's a similar interface here. We can set the permissions and then share the link to someone outside of your organization. And then you can also view the previous versions of that file as well. So let's say you and a colleague are working on a financial report and your colleague accidentally uploads, say, the wrong version of it. Well, you can look at the previous versions and then download that previous version of the file. All right, and then one more thing I wanted to bring up is the Synology Drive admin console. So the Synology Drive admin console essentially allows you to centralize the sync settings for admins to monitor resources that are stored and shared on the Synology Drive. So as you can see here, we have the client device info, so the total number of clients, and then maybe the last time the client was synced. You can see that information here. And then client list, we can see the status of the device, and then any logs that you may find useful, and then the team folder. So the team folder, this is where you can control versioning, as well as enabling or disabling any folders that should or should not be seen on Synology Drive. Okay, so now we've seen how to remotely access shared files from across multiple locations. But we also have to acknowledge that for remote users to access the local network through the internet, it can sometimes take a while to download the files. And sometimes you just don't have the time to wait. So what would be another solution to this? When remote access isn't an option, it brings us to NAS sync, a way to synchronize files to servers. So what would that look like? So you have two separate office locations. With NAS to NAS syncing, the goal is to make a one-to-one replica of the NAS data so you can easily make changes from one NAS to the other. To accomplish this, we have a package called Synology Drive ShareSync. And with ShareSync, you can sync data amongst multiple Synology NAS devices so that no matter where any of your staff work, they will be able to operate as if they were all in the same office. Now, most businesses would probably implement bidirectional sync, but there are also other options to send this in one direction as well. All right, and then let's go into a demonstration of setting up NAS to NAS file synchronization using Synology Drive ShareSync. All right, so for Synology Drive ShareSync, you're going to need two NAS units. I have the demo NAS unit 1, which is going to be our local NAS, and then I have demo NAS number 2, which is going to be our remote NAS. And I'm going to show you how to set up a NAS to NAS synchronization using Synology Drive ShareSync. So I'm going to go back to the local NAS, and then I'm going to open up Synology Drive ShareSync. I'm going to get started now, and then it's going to ask you for the remote NAS address as well as the credentials for that remote NAS. It's going to test the connection. You click yes, and then it's going to ask you to select the remote folder. Now I'm going to select the Just Test folder, but you can also enable or disable folders that you want to be able to select using that Synology Drive admin console that we discussed earlier. All right, and it's going to ask you to review the sync settings. And if you want to edit your sync settings, just click on the remote folder and click Edit. And here is where you can select a folder to synchronize with your remote NAS, as well as doing a folder-based selective sync, where you can select the folders that you want to synchronize. For file filter, you can filter by file size, so you can specify to not sync files over a certain number of megabytes. All right, and then you can also do a filter by file type. So if you don't want to sync, say, your music or your videos, all you need to do is uncheck those boxes. And then for sync mode, this is where you can specify the file sync mode, as well as the sync direction, whether you want two-way or just one-way, where you download data from the remote Synology Drive server or upload data to the remote Synology Drive server. All right. And then when you click done, it's going to save and tell you that your Synology Drive is now up to date. So let's go ahead and open up Synology Drive on the local NAS. All right, so I've opened up Synology Drive, and I'm going to go ahead and upload a file. I'm going to upload this test image here. All right, and then as you can see, the image has now shown up on the Synology Drive web portal. So let's go to our remote NAS. All right, we're going to open up Synology Drive on the remote NAS. We're going to open up the Just Test folder. And as you can see, that image is also here as well. So we've seen how to remotely access an on-premise server using Synology Drive. We've also seen how to do a NAS to NAS sync using Synology Drive ShareSync. But what about when disaster strikes and you can no longer access your NAS units? Imagine if your building were to be wiped out by a fire. You wouldn't even have access to your data, which could possibly put you out of business. Well, that brings us to NAS to Cloud Sync, where you can synchronize files to multiple servers via supported cloud services. So let's first talk about a more traditional route of NAS to NAS file sync. Part of some business operations is that offices and headquarters need to be able to have a multi-directional file sync. So you have a unit at your headquarters and then 3 branch offices. Now at each of these 3 branch offices, they have specific files they need to share to HQ. So they send up that information. Now, HQ also has the capability of sending to their branch offices as well. HQ can then send that file down to the branch locations so that they all have a copy. Now, branch offices also have the ability to share files amongst each other. Office 3 needs to share with Office 1, and Office 1 needs to share with Office 2. And Office 3 doesn't get files from Office 1 because maybe they don't need it. So the important thing here to note is that with traditional NAS to NAS syncing, businesses need to scale their storage by investing in hardware. Now, for some, this may be a headache in thinking about what drives to purchase, or needing to get another unit or an expansion, or potentially even changing their RAID configuration. So what can we do to address this? Well, that brings us to hybrid share. And with Synology Hybrid Share, remote sites can access all secure cloud-backed shared folders. Combining our C2 cloud infrastructure with on-premise NAS units, it makes file collaboration faster and simpler. So let's take a look at this in more detail. So the way it works is by first giving your Synology NAS access to a pool of cloud storage and keeping those files in the cloud. When you write or access data, it caches it on your NAS as if it was stored locally. So joining a branch office is as easy as connecting a NAS to the same C2 account, and both teams will be able to access the shared folders and sync files on demand without having to change your workflows or deal with versioning. It also works with Synology Drive, so you can get the same features and wide platform support. So back to our similar diagram as before, you have your headquarters office and your 3 branch offices, 1, 2, and 3, and they all have files that they need to share amongst each other. So these files are essentially stored in the cloud, and should any office need these files from another office, they can pull and sync this data from the cloud on demand. So with Hybrid Share, you're getting the best of both clouds. You get fast local access for an on-premise solution with locally cached data on your NAS, and the scalability of a cloud solution, letting you allocate data as needed. So this will make growing your environment more effective and more efficient. And with that, thank you everyone for your time today. And if you have any questions or would like to learn more, please feel free to book a demo or reach out to onboarding@synologymerica.com.
Okay, well, Jessica, thank you again for being here with us today, and for an awesome presentation. And hey, from one Jessica to another, cool name.
Thank you. You too.
We've got a ton of great questions coming in. I want to jump into those, but before Jessica and I do that, I do want to point out to all of you that we've got that poll up on the screen here. Now, so what we're looking to understand is what additional information would you like about the Synology solution? So I say this to you guys every week. I'm going to repeat it again. There is a lot of information out there. It is a huge undertaking to start researching some of these solutions. And so wherever you can make your life easier, do it. Click on the poll here. Let the Synology team know this is the information that will help me most understand. This is what I'm looking for. So click on that poll there. Let them follow up. Let them put that right in your hand after we wrap today. Now, we've got some of these questions coming in. Jessica, you ready to dive in?
I am.
Okay, great. I want to start by something that I think comes up top of mind for a lot of people, and that's, when you're looking at something like this, are we looking at any bandwidth issues? So Melissa's specifically wondering about a hybrid sync environment. Is it going to slow down a remote user's bandwidth? And I want to tag on a follow-up to that. If we're looking at large file share, so over 100 gigabytes, is that going to slow things down?
Yeah, no, that is a very good question, and actually a pretty common question that we get. And to answer that, we actually have the Presto file server, which utilizes Synology's Internet Transfer Accelerator. And that is essentially a solution against improving file transfer performance. And it conquers high latency and unstable connections with these long-distance file transfers. So in short, you take more advantage of your available bandwidth and are able to configure a minimum and maximum bandwidth speed.
Oh, well, that's perfect. So nice and easy. You actually knocked off a few questions with that because we did have some questions about distancy latency. In one case, Dan here is wondering, is that still going to apply if we're talking about NAS to NAS sync?
For NAS to NAS sync, that is a great question. I believe so, but I will need to follow up with you on that one.
There you go, Dan. Jessica will follow up with you and get some more information. Okay, well let's talk about the data storage in cloud, because security obviously is a big concern. So we have a question here wondering if that's encrypted.
Yes, and that is something that I think is on a lot of people's mind, especially in the tech world with ransomware becoming more prominent. And I would like to say that data in Synology C2, C2 is Synology's own cloud solution. So in Synology C2 data centers, they can only be accessed by the Synology account that initially uploaded them. So your Synology NAS communicates with C2 over a securely encrypted XSL connection. So the C2 server protects all data from data breaches, and with encryption at rest, then the data is rendered unreadable before they are stored on any drive. An additional point I want to bring up is it is highly recommended that users enable client-side encryption with a license-free application that we have called Hyper Backup for the data to be unreadable using the advanced AES 256 encryption, which is military-grade encryption standard before transmission to Synology C2.
That just is a really cool sentence.
Very great. Thank you.
Sounds like we're talking in code here. Okay, well, I wish we could keep going, Jessica, because there's a lot of questions here, but we are going to have to leave it there. Before you leave us, however, if somebody is looking to get started, you right at the end of your presentation mentioned that booking a demo. Is that the best place, or what do you recommend? What's the first step?
Yes, for sure. So anyone who has more questions or would like some more info, they can definitely reach out to Synology onboarding at synologyamerica.com. That would be the best way to reach us. We have many people on our team who are here to help answer questions.
Perfect. Okay. Well, Jessica, again, I have to say thank you for such an engaging presentation, a couple of demos in there. And we really appreciate that. This has been a great insight into Synology, and we will make sure to anyone that asked a question that we didn't get to, that Jessica and the Synology team do get those. So please do stay tuned for follow-ups from the team. Jessica, thank you again.
All right. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
All right, and to everyone who filled out that poll, a big high five to you as well. I'm leaving that up for another second here, and okay, we'll move it along. All right, well, again, I know there's lots of questions hanging out there. While you're answering the poll and submitting those last questions in, I do want to remind you all to check out the Handouts tab. There's a great resource in there. Click on the Synology link and start exploring some of their solutions. That's an awesome way to kind of get to know Synology a little bit more. So click on the Synology link in the Handouts tab and take a little time to explore. But for now, we are going to keep moving along here in our EcoCast. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our next expert presenter. This is Herman Hesse, Vice President of Solutions at StrongDM. Herman, thank you so much for being here with us today. I know you've got some really interesting content lined up for us. I'm really excited about this presentation. We have some Q&A to get to, so I'm going to hand the mic right on over to you.
Hi. Identity is officially now the perimeter. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about, something that is top of mind as we enter a new phase of remote work across all of our organizations, and how the role of identity is critical in securing that infrastructure that we work with. My name is Herman Hesse, and I'm the VP of Solutions here at StrongDM. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about the role of identity and access management, and how we can take that to plan for tomorrow's employees, tomorrow's infrastructure, and tomorrow's emerging security needs. We know this, so this is not going to be new to you, but remote work is effectively the new normal. Today, the way we work and the world has changed. Headquarters have disappeared. The idea of a simple, secure infrastructure has gone and vanished along with it. Centralized IT and corporate networks have now been replaced by a decentralized workforce of employees scattered all over the place. They could be different time zones, different cities, different parts of the world. All of these people need access to do their jobs, regardless of where they might be physically located. Employees are all too familiar with the ability to gain access to work applications and technical resources through almost any internet connected device. As a result, they want and expect this anywhere access. The definition of a technical employee continues to evolve. These people need access to more resources and more of that data. That data is stored in places all over the place, either for regulatory reasons or for technology reasons. It could be data sovereignty, or it could be the app needs the data to be as close as possible to it. So the data could be anywhere. The idea of the technical employee is now, in my opinion, unavoidable, right? These employees, all of us, are now relying on data and technology in multiple ways, in multiple forms, to allow us to do our job. As such, we need access to some of this, to what is often sensitive information and protected systems. The number of employees that fall in this category has increased exponentially and continues to do so. We're not just talking about secure point-in-time access for developers or engineers, but it goes beyond that. Data scientists, product managers, marketers, salespeople, and more. With the move to cloud computing, the breadth of access required completely tears down the idea of traditional security boundaries and forces us as IT practitioners to seek a new security model that can deal with this anywhere reality. Security, therefore, must evolve from that traditional old school on-site protection model and adapt to be able to securely provide access to our ever-growing remote workforce. Next slide, please. The gates of identity have shifted. There's no debate around that, right? With more technical employees accessing critical and sensitive infrastructure that also has sensitive data inside or running on top of it, we need to ensure that all connections and access is secure and auditable. How do we do this? Traditional methods of security are no longer valid. With the change in the work environment, we need to change how we think about securing data in the infrastructure. Traditional security methods typically work by only putting a checkpoint in front of on the network. But however, once you're on that VPN, you now have access to the entire network if you know where to go. This design, this approach often leads to excessive privileges being granted and increases the risk to the company and increases the risk to the company by also expanding the attack surface. Next slide, please. The common practice for traditional security and securing remote access is to use a VPN. Our opinion here, strong VMs, that VPNs are no longer the answer. There are many issues that come with a VPN. They're not built for continuous use. They're not built for simplicity or to be simple. They often don't provide granularity in terms of visibility and activity around who can access what and how. And they're often lacking when it comes to performance in terms of speed. There are a lot of dependencies around that particular topic, and we can spend a decent amount of time talking about that, but that's not the idea today. We have to shift our mindset from network security and think more about identity security. Given our technical staff and individualized access to exactly what it is that they need when they need it. You know, as things have evolved, the use of open identity standards are a popular method for improving security through authentication, authorization, and provisioning. The standards that are in place today, and all of you are probably familiar with these: security assertion markup language, aka SAML, OAuth, and the system for cross-domain identity management, also known as SCIM. As these open identity standards become more and more popular and widespread, alongside the increasing adoption of mobile devices and cloud services, enterprises now have the ability to control what they need for improved security, strong authentication, while providing employees, customers, and partners what they want, i.e. access to cloud services, access to mobile apps or SaaS apps with more convenience, meaning they no longer have to worry about They don't have to log in multiple times to get to something, and they no longer have to worry about. Oftentimes, you can remove the need to have to worry about where the credentials are or who has access to the actual credentials. In addition to seamlessly integrating with and complementing these open identity standards to control access, StrongDM gives you additional control over your technical employees. For example, we allow you to detect and investigate suspicious activity in every SSH, RDP, or database session that is made using StrongDM. With easy integration to any of your existing vaults, such as HashiCorp or AWS Secrets Manager, StrongDM is able to eliminate the need for your technical employees to access, manage, or worry about remembering credentials. With a solution like StrongDM, you can grant specific just-in-time permissions to external collaborators, and that could be partners, contractors. At the same time, you can integrate our access control API to any of your existing security and automation tooling. What does that mean? Like, we can integrate with your SIM tools, we can integrate with your automation infrastructure as code processes. All of this helps to make it difficult for attackers to break into your network using someone else's identity to gain access to your IT assets. In addition, the monitoring capabilities of a solution like StrongDM are often greater than those of a conventional private network. This is because your organization now has clear visibility into who has access to what, when, and what they're doing. Session capture and session replay is one example of how we do this. This all makes it easy for you to filter out suspicious activities and reduce your attack surface. I'll reiterate this again. The perimeter for the network has basically vanished. We need to start thinking about the perimeter in terms of the individual employee and what they have access to. This is why I started out this presentation by saying identity is now the new perimeter. With end users holding the keys to the kingdom, we need to seriously consider how we think about who has access to those credentials and what they're doing with those credentials. In 2022, the Data Breach Investigations Report says credentials were the main cause of data breaches. This just reinforces the point and the importance of keeping keys and credentials secure. When end users have access to all these, the keys or the credentials, problems can arise. There's additional risk. This same report also found that 82% of the breaches involved involved some sort of human element, right? So because some employee has access to these credentials or gave them to the wrong person, you now have a breach. That's the human element. When security gets too complex for humans to work with, they tend to look for workarounds. And what do those workarounds mean? This could be giving a credential to someone who they think is trustworthy, or leaving them somewhere like in GitHub and exposing those credentials to a wider audience. All of this introduces risks, huge risks, not just to your business, but to your customers as well. Next slide, please. In an ideal state, your end users will only have access to just the 10 resources that they need, nothing more, nothing less. Access can be given through, by practicing things like least privilege or just-in-time access. These are just pretty straightforward best practices that form the foundation of any company's ability to get to zero trust security posture. As we see the shift to the cloud, how we interact with these resources and the infrastructure continues to change. Companies need to adapt beyond the traditional network perimeter security approach to an individualized identity-based approach to keep bad actors out. If you approach access from an identity perspective, you're able to enhance your security, your organization's security. And in the worst case scenario where someone does get access to an individual's credentials or a system's credentials, that attack would now be isolated just to the resources that individual has access to. What does the future of access management look like? Just pretty much, from my perspective, there's just four main areas, right? Individualized access, eliminating credential exposure, protecting the business from breaches. The ability to protect the business from breaches also decreasing the negative impact to your brand. What do you need in a solution? Like, a solution to help get you to this, to help solve the problem of pyramid as a new identity. I've covered a few different areas today, but I think the most important one is that access management is critical in keeping what is now and I don't think there's any going back, the fact that our workforces are now remote. How do we keep them secure? How do we keep their access secure? The features that you need in an access management solution that will continue to help protect your business as you grow that business and scale your infrastructure. It's not a very long list, but there's some important things to bear in mind. One, the solution should be cloud native. Two, solution that can support multi-cloud and hybrid infrastructures. A lot of your organizations are still in that process of having infrastructure in your data centers and in your cloud, while you make that complete shift to the cloud-only infrastructure. It must be something that is built for the modern stack, meaning it should be able to support all of your databases, whether they're your modern NoSQL databases or they're your traditional SQL databases. They should be able to support that. Should be able to support your use of containers and clusters that come with that. The ability to secure your cloud consoles. So the solution must be cloud console aware. And at the same time, be able to seamlessly integrate with any of the existing secrets managers out there that most of you are likely using, like HashiCorp Vault or AWS Secrets Manager. StrongDM is a solution that works in your infrastructure today and addresses all of the points that I just raised in terms of what you need in a solution. It is designed to ensure that your connections or your employee connections to your infrastructure are secure and seamless and can be managed from a central control plane. It's pretty easy if you want to see more. You can sign up on my website for a free trial and teach yourself how to sort of go about using the product yourself, or you can book a live demo and someone from my team will be happy to walk you through the solution and how it works and what the benefits are. So on that note, thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you, Herman, for an excellent presentation. I'm so excited to get into some of these questions with you. I also want to welcome, I understand we've got Greg Thomas Baldwin, Solutions Architect at StrongDM. So Greg and Herman, welcome to Q&A time.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, before we get into questions from the audience, you guys actually had a question for the audience. And so the question that you were wondering here is, in your opinion, what type of identity is most likely to be breached? Herman or Greg, would either of you like to expand on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at most of the recent breach events that have occurred in the last, I don't know, couple of years, most of them are tied to human behavior. So it's the employees, and that's, if you look at the response from the audience, it looks like they get it. They recognize it as well.
Yeah, they're with you. It's about 52% for those of you who can't see at home.
Yeah. So I think it continues to be a soft spot in a lot of companies or organizations' security. People get social engineered, people leave credentials laying around, they leave them in GitHub. There's a number of areas where people are handling credentials they shouldn't have to if the right solutions are in place.
Now, can I ask you both, because the second runner-up here, so yeah, over half the audience is really with you on, and I know you folks can't see at home, so just to give you an idea, we're sitting at about just over 50% think that it was an employee. But the next one down, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, is third-party vendors, so service providers, partners, consultants. Does that ring true to you that it actually is the next biggest concern, or does it seem like that's more of a perception that people have?
No, I think it's an absolutely a valid concern in terms of where it's being ranked. Looking at these responses, we had a recent breach where it was I think it was an outsourced employee who was harangued into giving up some credentials, and he eventually gave up those credentials to an attacker, and that attacker was able to go do what he wanted to do from a malicious standpoint in that organization's environment. So, it is. They may, we a lot of companies outsource technology projects to third parties. We bring in vendors. We have short-term projects. We might bring in people to come in and help complete that project, and they may not necessarily be trained at the same level of security process as our own employees might be. They just may not have the same sort of, how do you say it? They may not feel like they have the same, they're as invested as one of our own employees, and it's easy for them. I think it's easier for them to give that stuff up or give access to people without realizing that they're actually putting the organization at risk. So it's also a very common occurrence to see this happening.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. You're effectively giving, we talk about keys to the castle all the time. You're giving your keys to the castle to somebody that doesn't have the same, even if you sort of trust them through a relationship, they don't have the same investment that your employees do maybe. Would you, that's interesting. I wonder, that could apply with contract and freelancers, although I suppose that would be under the employees and human element. But any sort of window that you're opening in your wall is a potential weak point.
Yeah, I mean, I think contractors and freelancers would span both the employee category and third-party vendor category.
Right. Good point. Foot in each camp. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I love that question, and certainly thank you to everyone who answered, because that's interesting. I don't have the results page set up here, so I can't show you all, but I'm just going to tell you that you were all pretty well over half in employees. The next biggest was third-party vendors. Under that was consumers, then machine identities, and very, very last was business customers, B2C. So that's kind of your spread across the board there. Thanks to everybody who answered. I'm going to just click over to our next poll, because our follow-up question for you is wondering what additional information you would like about the Strong DM solution. So I mentioned this before, but again, make your life easier, streamline your research process, let Strong DM know what is the information, what is the follow-up that is going to best serve you at this time. So make sure you click, and it also really just helps us know, what you all are looking for, what information is helpful, so that we can make sure that we're fine-tuning these presentations, getting you what you need. So make your life easy, make presentations even better with one easy click. So there you go. While you guys are filling that out, I want to jump into some of the questions while we've got some time here. Are you guys ready for a little Q&A?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Perfect. So I'm really curious. Zero Trust is something I find really fascinating. What is Strong DM doing to support Zero Trust initiatives, specifically in the cloud?
Uniquely, we actually span across a couple different concepts of the classic Zero Trust idea presented in the original paper. One of the functions of Zero Trust is never assume that somebody is who they are, and one of the problems of user access is if I have credentials, by inherent access I have a certain level of trust, but that alone doesn't give me any proof of who I am. So coupling that with MFA, it becomes better. But one of the things that we really focus on, and one of my favorite things about our product and how it supports some of our financial organizations, is when a developer starts their day, they have access to nothing. You could sign into their laptop, you could sign in their workstation. You would have no access to credentials, by the nature of our credentials, I should say secrets. The nature by which we work, all the secrets stay within your network. They're never handed out to the user. The access of credentials is at the gateway, and the user requests that access from the gateway, but still able to use their local native tools. The other point is that today, if I sign into something, I might have access to this OU in my group, which gives me access to these databases and these resources. Using Strong DM, you can start your day with your users having no credentials and a request put out where you can auto approve that as a manager, or you can also, for example, you want to protect prod. Nobody gets into prod without a secondary response. We can absolutely provide the just-in-time credentials. That's the basics of some of the things that we do with Zero Trust, but it's a holistic concept. So there's not like one magic bullet. That's what I do is I work with customers and go, okay, what are you doing today? And then look at how we can improve that posture so that credential theft and permission elevation doesn't happen accidentally.
That's such a good point. We talk about Zero Trust so much. I think people start to think that it's a one checkbox rather than an approach and a holistic set of guidelines. Exactly. And a thought process and all these other cool things. That actually feeds in some of the things you mentioned sound like some of the things that really make you guys stand out. And Hitesh here is wondering if you could clarify, what, looking in that access and privilege management solution field, what really makes Strong DM stand out? Why is someone going to come look at you guys first?
Now, looking at this, and I see the One Identity, and they've got their SSO product. I haven't looked at some of the other components there, but I will tell you that from an ease of deployment standpoint, we are one of the simplest. We are very lightweight. We're a single go binary. We run on 2 cores and 4 gigs of RAM for a gateway, and we are agentless. There's no need to go into your servers and provide those with another configuration to your deployment. We speak the native protocols from the gateways. You simply need to have a network path there and typically a secrets vault of some sort to store your credentials. I would love to talk more about that and see what you're comparing, because both of those companies have a number of different products, and I just want to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples.
There you go. So Hitesh, it sounds like the team will follow up with you with some more specific details, and certainly those are some great places to kind of start if for anyone out there that's making their decision. And actually, speaking of that, and guys, I really wish we could keep going with this conversation, but we are going to have to wrap it up pretty quick here. But Herman and Greg, for somebody that is looking for either more information or to really get started to take those first steps with Strong DM, what do you recommend?
It's pretty easy, actually. Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
I was going to say strongdm.com or info@strongdm.com. That'll get you there. If you want to experiment with it, there's a free demo. We also like to take you through proofs of value, show you how it works, and help you. The one thing I would encourage everybody to do is just take a look at it, because the way we implement, we're not a rip and replace. We can fit on top of what you have today and then slowly merge to a simpler, less complicated deployment.
Love that. Herman, anything you want to add?
No, I mean, Greg said, free trial on the website. You can get started if you want a more of a white glove approach to evaluating the solution. We have a team of SEs and account executives ready to help you with that. It's a very easy solution to deploy, to Greg's point. So, looking forward to hearing from all of the audience and seeing them sign up.
Yeah, absolutely. And Herman and Greg, I do want to tell you, as well as the audience out there, although you've all heard me say this a few times now, we are going to make sure that all the questions asked today get to your team, so you will have a chance to follow up with anybody that asked a question we didn't get to. And Herman, Greg, I want to thank you both for being here to kind of chat through some of those questions and for an excellent presentation. Herman, really appreciate that.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you for
everyone. Have a great day. Bye.
All right. Well, and a big high five to everybody who answered that poll question. Please do keep those coming in. I'm seeing some great comments, and again, feel free, comments, questions. We love seeing this come into that questions console there. It's really interesting hearing all of your different perspectives. So please do keep those coming. Well, we are going to keep things rolling along in our EcoCast today. Oh my goodness, would you look at that? I knew that some of you were sitting at home thinking, great, and when is our first prize giveaway, Jess? And here it is. So right now we have a $500 Amazon gift card. I'm going to remind you all that you do need to be present here at the webinar in order to win. Our lucky winner, first winner of the day here is Mike DeLeon of Utah. Mike DeLeon of Utah, you have won a $500 Amazon gift card. congratulations. As always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after the webinar wraps. Now, don't forget, there are still 3 more chances to win one of those prizes today, plus that best question gift card from each session, even if we don't get to your question live. So don't despair. Lots more chances to win there. Now, I forgot to mention, because I got so excited about the prize here, that if you haven't already clicked into the handouts tab and checked out the Strong DM handout, the infrastructure access platform from Strong DM, it's exploring simple, secure access to every resource your team needs. So there's some details on how that can really benefit you. Basically, it's a great extension of the chat that we just had with Greg and Herman. So go and download that, save that for later. So there you go. If you didn't win a prize, you still get something awesome. All right, well, let's keep moving along because we've got another exciting presentation to get to. Up next, I am so happy to introduce you all to our very next expert presenter, John Spiegel, Director of Strategy at Access. John, thank you so much for being here with us on the EcoCast today. Now, I know you've got some really fun stuff lined up for us, so I'm going to hand the mic right on over to you.
Hello, I'm John Spiegel. I've got 25 years of running global networks and managing infrastructure. So I've sat in your chair. I've been the person making those hard decisions at 2 a.m. in the morning in the middle of an extended outage. I've also been an enterprise engineer, a team leader, and then the person responsible for all things infrastructure at a company called Columbia Sportswear. And when I wasn't putting out a fire or sitting in a budget meeting, I also advised several successful startups, as well as spoke at many of the major industry conferences on the topics of software-defined networking and software-defined WANs. In 2021, I had the opportunity to join a big-name SD-WAN vendor. I passed on it. The reason is in 2020, our world changed. Work as we knew it in 2019 will never be. What this means is how you design, build, and operate your network and security systems will also need to change. This also means that how you support your remote workforce must also adjust. Right now, I'm working from home. I'm connected on a Comcast broadband line and broadcasting to you from my kitchen table. I've blended both my work and home personas together. I'm what you call a digital citizen. And as a result, I have responsibilities to do my best to make sure that my public and private lives do not intersect in a negative way. And as we all know, this is challenging. For instance, my home network I'm running on has a number of devices which could carry a compromise. I have a 15-year-old son. He spends a lot of time on the internet. He uses his school Chromebook for his homework. He has an iPad which he spends a lot of time watching YouTube videos on how to fix cars. Then he also has a legacy Windows laptop to play classic 90s video games. Secure? I don't know. My fingers are crossed on that one. My wife? Well, she could be doing the family banking right now. And then there's my daughter, who I am sure is playing Roblox on her iPad or is designing another Roblox world on her iMac. Secure? I don't know. My fingers are crossed once again. This is very unlike the world I'm used to. My world at my former work was very different. Remote access? It was a tightly controlled system, which involved a lot of sheet metal boxes running in a central data center. My daily journey looked like this. Say I needed access to a remote database, which contains all the updates for projects I'm responsible for. My journey would look like this. I would turn on my VPN, traverse the internet. I would pass through the corporate firewall, then connect to a VPN concentrator. I'd then have to navigate a DDoS defense system. I'd be interrogated by the NAC system. I'd have to work my way then through an SSL decryptor. I would be checked by the IPS system and then yet again interrogated by another firewall. And this is where the journey gets interesting. I would have to log on to a VDI jump box and finally access the database. And where does it live? Of course, it's on the internet. I had to run a virtual IT gauntlet just to get my work done. And keep in mind, my packets likely crossed 8 different security products from 8 different vendors. And on top of that, it is possible these 8 different security products were not integrated in any way, and more often than not, managed by different teams. And if we pan away from the journey of one employee to the entire enterprise network, we gain a new view. The pace of digital transformation is placing even greater stress on the traditional network. Originally built to deliver connectivity from the campus or the branch to an internal data center, the enterprise network is now being tasked with delivering not only to that internal data center, but to external locations. Examples could be an IaaS load hosted in Azure. Maybe it's a serverless application in AWS, but more often than not these days, it's a SaaS application like Workday or Salesforce. Now, I cannot stress this enough. Our IT networks were designed in the 90s to funnel data back to a single data center. Yet here we are. These very same networks are now the core backbone for connecting to centers of data in just about every corner of the globe. So here we have technologies designed in the last century, and here we are in 2022. And just about everything in IT has changed but this: how to deliver applications securely. And why is this a problem? Because by their very nature and how these networks evolved, as well as the modern demands we place on them, they are operated at a high cost and high overhead. And the complexity built into today's networks results in them being brittle, prone to break, insecure, and as a result, expensive to operate and maintain. And what about cybersecurity? The landscape there has also changed. And here are some stats on security. Social engineering threats have increased by a whopping 270% in 2021. Security experts have discovered an over 1,500% increase in the attacks against VPN due to remote work. And IPsec, that protocol we all rely on for remote access, it has grown to over 400,000 lines of code. And it's been around since the 90s, so there's plenty of bugs still to find. What this means is that you are the target, the remote worker, both in their employee and the doppelganger off the clock persona, are now the bullseye for the bad actors. Your digital work and your life persona are now front and center on the front lines. So what is the path forward? How can we remove the complexity of the past and enable this thing called the hybrid workforce, along with securing the enterprise in this new emerging threat landscape? There must be a better way. And the answer is this: the new paradigm for network and security announced by Gartner in 2019. It's called the Security Service Edge, or more commonly known as SSE. The focus, it's on the digital employee. It merges network access with security in a manner which overcomes the complexity, the cost, and the operational burden of legacy approaches, while also promoting the benefits of being a good digital citizen. This is the future for delivering and enabling the remote worker. SSE puts the employee at the front and center. They become the axis for enabling work in this new era. Unlike platforms of the past, the solution is delivered in a modern way, meaning it's built on a cloud-forward architecture. This enables you to secure your employees, third parties, as well as services to business-critical applications and resources. The foundation is built on something we call adaptive trust, meaning that access is automatically validated based on policy and context. This could be a user's identity, Maybe it's the device posture, could be the specific application, or it could even be a user's location. Let me give you an example. Say I'm working from home and I need access to the ERP system. The company has provided me a corporate laptop, it's got a gold image on it, and it includes a digital cert. It's a trusted device. It also has CrowdStrike enabled on it, and it's operational. The disk is encrypted, and it knows that I log in from home. I therefore get full access to the company's crown jewels. But say I'm on vacation. I get a call. I need to verify something in the ERP database. But that trusted resource, my laptop, I left it at home. But hey, there's my daughter's laptop. And remember, she's a Roblox addict. Should I get full access? The system is smart enough to answer the question and deny me. This is just one of the examples how SSE enables and secures remote work. How does the SSE platform work? It starts with a cloud-delivered platform, which runs agnostically built on the likes of AWS, Google Cloud, Oracle Cloud, and Azure. This allows the platform to extend elastically, and demand for services can expand or contract based on the needs of your business. Key word here I said was platform. The solution is built leveraging zero trust principles from day one, which means zero trust is foundational. There's no reverse engineering here. It is zero trust day one. What this means is services like private access, secure web gateway, cloud access broker, and data leak protection can be added on as features. They are not separate point products, but features built on top of the overall platform. Additionally, as the service is broker-based, the platform has deep visibility into both network and security functions. This allows you to peer deep inside your network and understand what your employees, those are your customers, are doing. It allows you to understand how an employee, a device, or even an application is performing. This is central and critical to supporting remote workers. It also allows you to be data-driven and surgical from an operations perspective, versus playing the traditional game of 20 questions, only to figure out that the SaaS provider's front end has a runaway process and thus causing application slowness. The solution supports your common clients such as Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android. Linux support is also coming soon. Another key feature is the agent. Here you have choice. For scenarios involving your enterprise employees, the recommendation is to go with our agent. In our case, we support full posture checks, including challenging obstacles for zero trust like voice over IP, ICMP, and service-initiated actions like patching. We can handle that. For third parties, leveraging an agent approach is best. This works well for BYOD scenarios, as well as contractors who need limited access to a handful of applications. This is all provided with full adaptive access trust. But securing your work persona is not enough. I started this talk with the challenge of the dichotomy of your work and life personas, meaning your digital expression in your work life and how it can bleed over into your life persona. The two are no longer separate. What you do, what you say, how you act in either realm has an impact on the other. In a sense, we now live in the cyberverse of the Marvel metaverse. So what you need to do is embody your Sorcerer Supreme to keep the two in check. So what are some ways you can help here? First, in your role supporting the remote workforce, you need to raise awareness of this challenge. This is key. Find a way to advocate for digital citizenship awareness. This could be through a regular email, maybe it's a video, or even I recommend working with your leadership team to make it a common topic during the all-hands meeting. You need to make digital citizenry a common topic within your company. Next, find teachable moments. My recommendation here is to leverage stories or lessons that happen outside your corporate walls. Shaming your employees, who are your customers, will not win you points. Rather, find examples in the news which can help get the point across. Topics can be along the lines of keeping your identity and passwords safe in both worlds. Maybe it's the use of MFA in retaining your children's virtual worlds. I help my daughter on MFA for the time that she's spending building Roblox worlds. Then work to weave the concept of digital citizenry into the culture of your company. The benefits for you and your company are this: greater awareness of cyber attacks like phishing, fake websites, or even water holing. There's also a growing issue of tech support scams. And honestly, I've seen this work. Your C-level team are now targets for this. And it happens. Consider the turnover in your operations team. Is there any way your CIO knows who John from IT is from Jim from IT? And he or she might be willing to divulge their password, their username combination unknowingly via these social engineering exploits. The benefit for you is this: a reduction in tickets and an increase in your security posture. At the end of the day, building awareness around digital citizenry is the tide which raises all the boats. It's the right thing to do for yourself and your company. So get started now. Another area to focus on when supporting remote workers is this: digital experience monitoring. As we are now in a software world, if you're not investing in this area, now is the time to get started. Remote working removes many of the assumed constants in our world. In the past, you could count on the stability of the campus or the branch LAN. Networking there was consistent, it was stable, bandwidth was plentiful. Remote working flips the script. You now need to deal with your executive calling in about a slow application and playing 20 questions only to find out they're at a Starbucks and they have poor bandwidth. This is where digital experience comes into play. Simply put, the tool leverages data collected from both the endpoint agent, the network, and the overall system. The telemetry is then sent to a massive data lake. Here, insights can be obtained from either a structured query or tools like ML or AIOps. The result? Near-time insights on your remote workforce. Questions like, how is the SAP application performing? Or is the remote workers seeing a Wi-Fi interference can be quickly determined and presented on a dashboard. What this does is it enables you to shift left your operational work. You no longer need to engage that level 3 network engineer to troubleshoot the remote worker's home network. This is not an ideal use of resources at your company. Rather, you can provide this tooling to your frontline operations team, the folks taking the call, working the tickets at the tip of the spear. With DEM, you can enable them to take the ticket, help the customer, and resolve the issue right away. It makes them the hero and puts you back into the focus of doing engineering and improving the solutions and tooling at your company. It's a win all around. And here is the Axis Atmos DEM solution in action. Deep insights from a single UI on traffic, locations, latency, and state of the device in question. Atmos DEM can go further. It can also show posture for an individual, as well as across the enterprise. Is CrowdStrike enabled? Is the disk encrypted? What is the latency of a device you're seeing as the remote worker moves from home to a cafe, to the airport, to on a plane, and even in the office? Insights like these make your life easier. They reduce what I call the mean time to innocence for you and your team. Your KPIs improve, and I believe so does your enjoyment of work. Less tickets, more success. That is what DEM is all about. As we come to the end of this presentation, I want to leave you with a few key takeaways. First, our world has changed over the past 30 months. Remote work, it is here to stay, so embrace it. Your job is to make remote work for your organization a competitive advantage in the battle for talent. As employees can now work from anywhere, the landscape has changed. If you live in Atlanta, you're now competing against companies in Seattle, Milwaukee, Boston for talented employees. Make the experience for them awesome and secure. Know that talented employees will not put up with bad IT solutions. They will demand better. Next, this means that solutions like remote access VPNs need to go. They are also relics of the past. They slow down your workforce, they tie you down in complexity, and worse, are not secure. So make the move to an SSE-style solution. SSE is designed for the remote worker. The solution is there to enable them. So research it, understand it, and if you have questions, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help you on your journey. Next, work with your employees, your customers, on how to be a good digital citizen. Our public and private lives now intersect online. The bad cyber actors, they're aware of this and they are targeting you and your company. Arm them with knowledge. Encourage digital citizenship, embedded into the fabric of your company. The benefits are countless for you and your company. More secure, happier public and private lives, and selfishly for you, less trouble tickets on the front lines. The last item here, I run an organization called the SSE Forum. We are advocates for the SASE, SSE, and Zero Trust space. We are also vendor neutral. And we are focused on helping you, the practitioner, understand this critical landscape and technologies and get you past the confusing marketing. We do podcasts and recently published a series on Zero Trust with the founders of the movement. Check it out. The website is sseforum.io. I thank you for your time, and let's open it up for questions.
Oh man. All right. Well, John, thank you for that awesome presentation. We have just a ton of great questions coming in. I can already tell we're not going to get to them all, but I definitely want to dive into them. Before we do that though, John, I do want to point out to everyone in the audience that we have that poll up and we want to know what additional information you would like to get about the Access solution. So I can see you're all fired up out there because I can see those questions rolling in. So clearly you want some extra information. And as I said, we're going to be a little tight on time. So this is how you can get it. Click on the poll there, let Access know what you would like to know, what information you need, and they will make sure that you get it. So take a minute now and fill that out. And in the meantime, John and I are going to start digging in. You ready?
Let's go.
Let's do it. All right, well, I want to start with this one here from Peter. He's wondering if there's a significant difference in functionality and protection tracking between an agent and an agentless model. He says he understands the recommendations. How acceptable is the agentless model if there are simply too many barriers to having agents installed properly?
Yeah, I think it really speaks to what problem are you trying to solve. So if it's for instance, like a contractor, that's a person that you may or may not want to provide a corporate laptop to. A lot of companies, it's a BYOD model. So having control over that laptop, being able to install an agent may not be acceptable. So that's where the agentless approach works extremely well. We've worked with a number of our customers and seen significant return on investments by just moving to this BYOD model with an agentless solution. On the other hand, if you're looking to secure your enterprise and remote workforce, hybrid workforce, and you want to be able to do more posture checks, for instance, verifying whether or not CrowdStrike's enabled or a particular patch is installed, or you want to be more granular about adaptive trust, that's where the agent approach is going to be a better one. So it really comes down to what problem are you looking to solve.
Perfect. Okay. I'm going to ask a question here from Sharon. She's wondering, for Access, can you speak to how vulnerability management is addressed through your platform?
Yeah, again, it comes down to adaptive trust, the ability for that agent to check and see what's going on that device, Again, does it have CrowdStrike enabled? Is the disk encrypted? Those types of things, or what location is the device coming from? So it really plays into that adaptive trust. And then there's also this concept of cyber mesh, where you create these partnerships amongst various companies, and there's API support between the two, so you get a tighter integration. So those are some of the ways we can help with vulnerability management.
Well, that's a great answer. And John, I'm so sorry to say this, but I think we're going to have to leave it there. But before you leave us,
Okay.
Can you, it goes by fast, I'm telling you.
It does, doesn't it?
The time. You think you're going to have all the time in the world, and then here we are. But before you leave us, can you let us know, for anyone that is looking to take that first step, they're ready to jump in, what do they do? How do they reach out to you?
Best way is to reach out to Access Security on our website. Check there. There's a lot of great resources. You can certainly connect with me on LinkedIn. There's a lot going on there as well. And then the final item is our SSE forum, which I am a co-host for. We do a lot of a good outreach. There's podcasts on how to get started with SSE and some of the ancillary technologies associated with it. So check it out. SSEforum.io is the website.
I love that. And John, I really appreciate, you can tell you do this a lot. I love the picture you painted, the imagery of you being in your at-home workplace was, I think, something we can all relate to. So
exactly.
I certainly hope your kids are nice and secure in all that they do, but I know that's a concern for a lot of us. I hope we get to dig into some of that. Yeah, right. Well, I hope we can have you back, my friend, and dig into some of this a bit more, because I think there's a lot that we haven't gotten to. But thank you so much for being here with us today and for a wonderful presentation.
Thanks for having me. Enjoy the rest of your day.
And to everyone who did send in a question, I know there was a lot. I know we didn't get to them, but we are going to make sure that those go to Access and to John. So the team will either get back to you live chat during the event, or they'll follow up with you after we wrap. So you will get answers. Please do keep those questions coming in. Also, to everyone who filled out the poll, very much appreciate that. I want to remind you, if you're looking for more content right away, go to the Handouts tab, click on the Access link. You can read all about Atmos by Access, how to enable your distributed enterprise, secure third-party access, and modernize your infrastructure. All really good things. This is a really engaging and interesting read, so please do click in and explore. But for now, we're going to keep cruising along in our presentation here. There we go. All right. Up next, I am so excited to introduce you all. We have two awesome presenters on our next session of the EcoCast. So we're going to hear from Mark Towler, Product Marketing Director at Catchpoint, and Bob Ruggiero, Workforce Experience Solution Engineer at Catchpoint. Mark and Bob, thank you both for being here with us today. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you guys. So the platform is all yours.
Well, thanks very much for having us. We're delighted to be here. I'm going to dive right in then. Thanks, everybody. My name, as mentioned, is Mark Teller. I'm a Product Marketing Director here with Catchpoint, and I'm joined by Bob Ruggiero, who's our Workforce Experience Solutions Engineer. And I'm going to talk to you for just a few minutes about how you can ensure the hybrid workforce experience. And I won't bore you too much, because then I'll hand it over to Bob, who will walk you through a demo and explain exactly what I'm talking about. But just to table set and level set and make sure we're all on the same point, one thing to bear in mind is there is no more work, not in the traditional sense. The idea of commuting, going into an office, sitting there all day, talking with people, dusting around the water cooler, some people are still doing it, some people aren't. People are everywhere. This was happening for a long, long time. I may tell you an anecdote about that in a second, depending on how much time we've got. But the pandemic absolutely accelerated this process. People were starting to work from home for a variety of reasons. Modern telecommunications were making that much more possible. The way modern industries were dispersed across the globe made it a question of, why am I going into the office if I'm spending all my time sitting in front of a computer on Zoom or Skype calls anyway? 42%, this is a recent Gallup poll, of employees are currently hybrid right now, 42%. And 39% are fully remote, meaning they don't come into the office at all. That is a huge percentage of a workforce that used to, as few as 20 years ago, go into the office every single day, all right? And this is not changing, all right? 70% of workers do not want to be in the office more than 2 days a week at maximum, period. Sometimes there's reasons they want to get in maybe once or twice a week. I can see it. Most more than happy to stay at home. And in fact, not only are they happy to stay at home, a full 50%, and again, I'm getting all these numbers from Gallup, a full 50% of these workers are going to quit before they come back full time. And I'm sure you've all seen all the headlines, all the articles discussing this. It's like, suddenly we got a taste of remote work. Who's coming back to the office? No one. And that's not a bad thing. There was a lot of concern. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of middle management of like, how do I manage these people if I can't look at them? Over 2 years of pandemic, where everyone went home, whether they wanted to or not, productivity either increased, and in some cases spectacularly, or wasn't impacted at all. All right? And that makes employers happy. Employees, on the other hand, are delighted. They like the flexibility of being able to work from home when and if they need to. They don't miss 2 hours of commuting every day. And they really enjoy the fact that they're not spending that money on gas and the coffee on the way in and all those other things that add up. And I'll mention that cost savings, that's not just on the employee side. That's also applicable to the employers who no longer have to maintain large office buildings. Some of them are still paying for them, which is where you're feeling some of the pain on their side. But just to put this in perspective, and I've been in this industry a while, this is the anecdote I mentioned. A long time ago in the late 90s, the Stone Age for some of you, I was working for a company called Nortel in Ottawa, and they had a issue with office space. They didn't have enough of it, and they were trying to reduce the amount they needed for their hundreds, if not thousands, of engineers. And they had good internet. ISDN had just been developed, so go ask an older person what that means or look it up on Google. And they had the ability to send a lot of their engineers home. And I remember this offer. They said, if you will go home and not have an office in the building, which again, for some of these people, that was just like absolute heresy. If you'll go home and work from home, we will not only give you a $5,000 bonus right now, we will spend $10,000 on office furniture, equipment, whatever you want, and we'll pay for your internet. That was around 1997. So factor in inflation, and that is a significant amount. And that's what one giant multinational company was happy to pay in order to get people to work from home. Imagine if they could have cut their office space down by 90% by having almost all of them home. So that's a key issue, and that's why hybrid work is here to stay, which is great unless you're part of the IT team, because all of a sudden you've got a bunch of new challenges. The employees aren't here anymore. You used to be able to walk down the hall, hit the caps lock key, and the password problem is solved. It's not that simple anymore, and everything isn't within your own local network. Your employees are connecting to your network and your applications and your solutions in a million different ways, and it can change from day to day, and it can change even during the day. So you never have any idea where someone is. In fact, that's the advantage. They could be in Dubai, they could be in an airport in London, they could be in a coffee shop, they could be home. You don't know, but they still need to be able to connect in order to work. And you don't have a network anymore. Not really, not the way it used to be. The old ways of a big server room and a bunch of systems that everyone would connect to, and maybe a VPN, and that connects to the internet. No. The internet and the cloud are the new enterprise network. All right, no one's buying the servers anymore. People are buying space on AWS or Azure. No one is buying some of the firewalls, or they're building their own firewalls. They're all renting or buying or cobbling these together from a myriad of cloud-based solutions. And the same thing goes for their applications. You don't own a homegrown system that's running on your own server. You're using Salesforce, which is a web-based SaaS provided to you. Same with a million other solutions out there. All right. All of these are your network, but most of them you don't have access to if you're IT. You get an administrative console, maybe, but you don't know what's going on with Zoom. Some guy in Paris is having trouble, and the guy in Japan is fine, and the 3 people who came into the office today are all working fine. You don't know what the problem is necessarily. Zoom says everything's working great. 80% of the problems that you're going to have are going to be ones that occur beyond your local firewall. So the existing suite of application performance monitoring or network performance monitoring tools that IT has been using to handle internal issues are becoming obsolete. They're just not enough. They cannot accurately determine what's going on. And that's important because experience is absolutely essential when it comes to managing your workforce. And what I mean by that is, think about absolutely every single interaction you have with anyone online, whether you're buying something, whether you're selling something, whether you're watching something, whether you're providing a service, obtaining a service, sending an email. Any of that all comes down to who are you using. And there are a million competitors for anything. I don't care what it is you're doing. Someone else out there is doing the exact same thing or something similar enough, and their customer base is close enough to yours that there's crossover. In fact, you're probably aware of that. You're probably trying to gain market share on their expense or vice versa. Everyone has a million choices, and people do not sit down and perform robotical cost-benefit analyses, generally, of what it is that they're going to do. They should. Businesses are, in theory, supposed to be doing this, all right? The problem is they don't. People are emotionally driven. You'll hear this from salespeople all the time. They don't care whether it's the best solution. Is it an emotionally satisfying way? No one's going to tell you a Ferrari is a reliable car. Doesn't mean people don't want Ferraris. It's the same issue here. If people do not have a good experience with whatever it is that you're selling, they will move elsewhere. And that is whether they're a customer or whether they're an employee. And your employees, your workforce, is now expecting the exact same experience that your end customers are getting. And they want that experience regardless of where they are. They might be in their home office. They might be in your office. They might be at a coffee shop. They might be in that airport in Dubai. They may be all over the world, which is great because your applications aren't, but they expect to get the exact same level of experience and service and quality and connectivity that they get no matter where they are. And if they can't, it's going to hurt. If your end users, your workforce, cannot connect to the applications they need to do their jobs and run your business, it's going to hurt your bottom line. And this is the part that makes the executives perk up and take notice, because at the end of the day, this is where the money comes in. If they can't connect, their productivity goes down. Remember how I said if productivity goes up when everyone went home and worked? But yeah, it works as long as they're able to connect. If they can't connect, productivity goes down. Employee morale goes down, as does satisfaction, and that's really important, and I'll explain a bit more about that in a second. Your employee retention goes down because they're no longer happy working with you. Why do I work with these people? I can't connect half the time. Or the Zoom meetings take so long. I have to take 5 minutes to log into a Zoom meeting. Who else is out there? And we're in the midst, tail end, I should say, really, of the Great Resignation. If you're in IT, if you're an ASA technology organization, the bidding is hot, and it is a employees market. So there's a lot of opportunity for someone to pick up and leave. And again, it's not a matter of are they getting paid more. It's not a matter of whether or not the job is better or different. It's a matter of how do they feel. If they're feeling unloved, unappreciated, and they can't connect and they're not feeling useful, they will look elsewhere. All right. There's an old adage: people don't leave jobs, they leave managers, and they leave environments. So that's something to be aware of. And then finally, all of this adds up to reduced revenue. The work's not getting done, your customers aren't happy. And this is where I'm going to come back to your customers not being happy and why this is essential. There is a very old rack of studies, really, nothing's changed, where they've determined that employee satisfaction is directly correlated with customer satisfaction. Or, as it used to be said, ESAT impacts CSAT. All it really comes down to is if your people are unhappy, your customers that they're dealing with are going to sense that, and they're not going to be happy. And whether that's something as basic as low level, you go into McDonald's, the employee's surly, doesn't want to talk to you, obviously wants nothing more than to not be there, you're going to go to Burger King next time. And it's the same thing no matter what it is. If you've got employees that aren't happy and aren't satisfied, you're going to have customers that aren't satisfied, and that's going to result in churn. So one of your priorities is to make sure that your workforce has a high level experience so that your customers are going to have a happy experience. And how do you keep your hybrid workforce happy? And it's really pretty straightforward. Every business is different, but at the end of the day, your people are scattered all over the place. They need to have uninterrupted access to the tools, the applications, and the solutions that they need to use in order to run your business. And if you can ensure that, you're going to be able to keep them happy. It's that simple. All right? That means that what you need to be able to do is troubleshoot any remote connectivity or performance issues. And you need to do that proactively, meaning you need to fix those issues before they start impacting your workers. It's absolutely essential. Customer, different company, different issue, but I had a customer say, if I can solve a problem before the end user notices, that is the holy grail of IT. It's absolutely fantastic. I don't have anyone yelling at me. I don't have anyone going, why is this down for 3 hours? It's like, I see a problem. I can fix it. No one even notices. My job is done. They don't even know I'm doing anything, which is double-edged curse of IT, but separate issue. You're able to fix problems, and that keeps everything running smoothly, and the money keeps coming in. What you need to be able to do is see exactly what your workforce is experiencing directly from their desktops. That means you want to be able to look at their desktop and see their entire journey, how they're able to connect, how they're able to reach all of the tools, all of the applications that you're using, and whether or not that's working. All right. If you cannot do that, if you're only monitoring from the cloud or looking at those core servers you've got, and they're all saying, yeah, we're fine. But the guy in Dubai is like, I'm waiting 5 minutes for the Zoom logo to finish spinning. That's a huge issue, and you need to be able to understand that so you can understand that individual's problem. And that's where the regional visibility comes into, because that guy in Dubai might be the only one who's having problems, and everyone else scattered across the world is doing just fine. But you need to be able to isolate different regions. You need to isolate how they're experiencing the reachability, the availability, their performance, and how they're able to use all of your SaaS applications. Anything in the digital delivery chain, you need to be able to look at and identify the specific problems. And bear in mind, right now, for a lot of IT organizations, a lot of that's a big black box. Like I said, you've got a Zoom console to tell you kind of, the performance of your current Zoom, how many people are connected, that sort of thing. But Zoom's a great big black box. You don't know exactly what's happening. You know that you've got one person on one side, one person on the other side, and it should work, but, two of the people trying to connect aren't able to get through. Similarly for a bunch of other problems, and especially when they're intermittent. They can be maddeningly difficult to track down, and you're one of several thousand Salesforce customers. They're not necessarily going to be able to respond immediately to you, and they're certainly not going to let you take a look at what's going on within their system. So how do you figure out exactly what is going on that's preventing your Japanese sales crew from being able to connect reliably on Wednesdays at 3 p.m., for example? Another piece of this is the parts that are ubiquitous. I think you just talked about SASE issues a minute ago. SASE, VPN, again, this has all been outsourced now. All right, these are usually things that you're purchasing from another vendor. It's another SaaS solution, and you need to be able to understand how that's impacting your users and whether or not they can connect, and whether or not it's just slowing things down or working or what. And this is another one where you've got to be a little bit more careful, because again, the vendor will tell you, oh, here's your console, or yeah, everything looks good from our end. Well, it's in their best interest to tell you that, regardless of whether anything's good or not. So you really kind of want an independent way to actually confirm what they're telling you and know whether or not what they're saying is correct. And also, no one's going to care as much about your network as you are. So if there's ways to optimize or future-proof some of these solutions, you're the one who's going to want to be doing them and telling them, hey, reconfigure in this way for us. So I'm just giving you a massive info dump on why you need to care about your hybrid workforce's experience and some of the things you need to look for. I'm now going to hand things over to Bob, who's going to show you a way you can actually do that with a tool that just happens to be named CatchPoint. Go ahead, Bob.
Great. Thanks, Mark. And hi, everyone. Hopefully everyone can see my screen.
Yeah, we got you.
So you've got it? Great.
Yep, we can see you.
Excellent. So what I want to do in the few minutes that I have left here is walk you through some of the data and some of the use cases that Mark just talked about. So what we're looking at here is our CatchPoint portal, and we're actually monitoring an individual user. So we're looking at one of our employees here at CatchPoint and looking to understand, as Mark mentioned earlier, experience is everything. So from this gentleman's standpoint, what is his experience during the course of today? We measure this from 3 different vantage points. With our lightweight agent, we can monitor what's actually happening on that user's device. So understanding the impact that different applications and Wi-Fi connectivity has on their device. We start to score that and bubble up any potential problem areas that are occurring. We also look at the underlying network that all of these applications are being delivered across. And this is extremely critical in a hybrid workforce. Users are at home, users are in an office, they're in a coffee shop, they're in an airport, they're all over the place. And the network that they're using, networks that they're using are changing. We're going to help you understand the impact that that has on their experience. And lastly, of course, the applications that they're using. Any applications that are performing slowly or their availability are not reachable from where our users are located, we want to be able to identify that and flag it as well. So right on the surface, I understand that for this individual, their applications are working perfectly fine. Measured on a scale between 0 and 100, the applications are performing well. The network is a little bit degraded, but certainly not the biggest factor in their experience. Where we do need to search a little bit more and get a better understanding is at the endpoint or the device level. So now we start to dig in, okay, well, what's happening on the device? On the right-hand side of our screen, we have a timeline of all of the critical events and issues that our agent has detected over the time frame that I'm looking at. So I know when this individual came online at 9:52 this morning. I know that he's traveling this week. He's actually at a conference, and we can see that backed up with the SSID that he was connected to. So probably working out of his hotel early this morning, around noontime, he switched and moved into the conference room, and our agent detected that they're now connected to a different wireless network. Our IP address or his IP address has changed. And then we start to see some problems develop shortly after. There's errors in different types of tests that we're running from his machine. So the Catchpoint agent is going to help you run synthetic tests or proactive tests, accessing the critical applications and services that your employees rely on every single day. Those could be VPN services, it could be application services, it could be collaboration tools. All of the critical apps that we leverage, I can run tests to them proactively to make sure that the performance is adequate and that those applications and services are reachable. But also from a passive monitoring standpoint, we're going to monitor every single critical business application that your employees use, whether that be the Office Suite or Salesforce or Box.com, Google Suite. All of those applications, we can monitor the performance of those pages as they're loading. So now, as I start to dig into Zach's device, I'm going to look at, well, what's happening on their endpoint? What's their CPU utilization? What's his memory utilization? We can see his memory utilization is actually quite high. And Catchpoint is going to show us what services, what applications are consuming a lot of that memory. I'm going to be able to look at what is his Wi-Fi signal strength and signal quality. As we said earlier, he's working from a conference room, a hotel, right? I want to be able to know what kind of an impact does that have on his overall experience. From a network layer, I can start to see every single hop that his requests are going through, that his packets are going through to reach their final destination. And which one of those hops, whether it be his Wi-Fi connection, connection to an ISP, connection through a VPN, which one of those hops is actually contributing to any latency or packet loss, right, that he's seeing for Teams, for Zoom, for the Office applications, etc. And for Zach, we can see that as he starts to get out onto public ISPs, we do notice a bit more jitter, a bit more round trip time, etc. So one of our customers described this type of a dashboard as it's almost like being a mechanic. And without actually having a car inside of your shop, you're able to troubleshoot, understand what that user is experiencing without getting onto their device or contacting them. This is all being done remotely. The last screen that I just wanted to show here is a bit more of a holistic type use case. So instead of looking at an individual user, we're looking at an individual application. All right, this is one of our critical applications that we're monitoring here at Catchpoint. I can see what the overall availability of that application has been throughout the course of today. Not great, 83% available. I can see where my users are accessing that application from, and if there's any particular office or site or remote location where more users are negatively affected than others. I can see the magnitude of impact, how many actual errors are occurring for those users in each of those locations. But the thing that I wanted to point out here is the importance of proactive and passive monitoring from the employee's perspective. So I just want to finish off with this second row. As you'll see that the first widget in our second row is showing synthetic tests that we're running from our endpoint. These are just HTTP requests to this particular application that we use internally. And you'll notice that everything was working pretty well up until about 11:15 this morning. We start seeing HTTP errors, and a number of different employees were experiencing those HTTP errors. Now, from a synthetic test, that's really valuable because we can immediately notify our IT teams and our applications teams that there's a problem, and they can start addressing that problem straight away. In the middle graph, we're looking at the passive monitoring. So this is actual user interactions for that application. And you'll notice that right after about 11 o'clock this morning, there's a little bit of a gap where no one was actually using that application. And it wasn't until almost an hour or 45 minutes later at 12 o'clock do we have our first real user hit that application and experience a problem. So if you're just monitoring passively, you have that potential of missing problems when users are not on the system or not online. But it's still important to actively monitor those transactions, those applications, even in off hours or non-peak hours. And then from there, we have the ability to drill down when there is a problem and actually see what those users were experiencing. And in this case, we had an example where users were getting a 404 error, and that page cannot be loaded. And there's additional performance data that we can start to collect, where we start looking at each and every object that's loading on that page, from JavaScript files to style sheets to images, and understanding what is contributing to a slower page load. Is it DNS lookup time? Is it time to connect? Is it an SSL handshake? Is it just the load time, etc.? So a lot of different telemetry that gives us a very comprehensive, holistic view into what our users are experiencing. And as you notice here, everything that I did was within a couple of clicks. Our goal is to improve that time and make it faster and easier for IT organizations to, one, validate what users are reporting when they complain about a performance issue, and then two, provide that deeper dive telemetry to understand the fault domain or the root cause of the problem. So I know I went through that quickly, but that is a high-level overview of some of the data that we're collecting from our workforce experience solution. And I'll stop.
Thank you very much, Bob. Thanks, Bob. Great demo. We've obviously hit this at a very high level, but the point of what we want to do is explain why you have a need to monitor workforce experience and some of the things that you're going to need to do if you want to do that effectively. Obviously, we've got an opinion about what the best tool is, and that is, of course, CatchPoint. Why specifically us? This is the plug that you're going to get, but we'll answer questions in just a minute. One thing that's absolutely key with CatchPoint is that we have the largest global observability network in the world. Remember, I talked about how you need to be able to monitor from the outside in. That's what you need, is a huge network that can look from the actual point of your employee all the way back into your core network area. And also, it's going to give you the ability to see into those black box areas I mentioned, parts of the network that IT cannot or does not control, so you can get a better understanding of exactly where the problem lies. I mentioned the unique outside-in observability. We're really the only ones out who can do that. So if you do have an issue with your workforce being unhappy because they can't connect reliably and you don't know why, we're going to be able to provide an answer, and most of our competitors will not be able to. And the other piece of that is that we're independent. A lot of the other solutions out there, and I mentioned a couple of them, are made by or owned by or part of the tools that you're using, which is fine, but they're usually going to be the last to blame themselves. Cisco's going to say Cisco stuff is great. Zoom's going to say Zoom's working perfectly. Salesforce is going to say everything's fine from our end. You need an independent view. So you have someone who doesn't have a dog in the hunt, who can be a trusted ally, which is something we've proven. And as Bob was kind of showing, we are experts and we build tools for experts. So if you would like to give CatchPoint a try, feel free to go to catchpoint.com and hit any one of those great big red try us buttons, or just go to that URL, which should be clickable right there on your screen. I know we've got a piece of collateral that is available here as well that goes into a bit more detail on our workforce experience solution and how we've used it in a few cases for people, but we are always more than happy to chat with people and go into a lot of detail because we're hitting this at fairly high level. There can be a lot of detail and there can be a lot of value in this. And with that said, I'm going to wrap things up because I know we went a little long maybe, and I want to save some time for Q&A. Thanks very much, everybody.
Well, thank you, Mark and Bob. Mark, you just hit all the three things I usually cover at the end, or how do you get started? Check out the handout. What are next steps, and what are your uniques? You just knocked all of them out. So I mean, I'll just go home. That was great. No, I work at home. Okay, awesome. Well, that was a great presentation, and thank you so much for that demo. Really interesting, and as you say, cool to see that kind of how easy it was happening in live time. So I appreciate that, both Mark and Bob. I do want to, we are a bit over time, but I'm going to sneak in one question before we kind of wrap. Roger here is wondering, does the solution have integrations with popular help desk software solutions? So specifically for work from anywhere or WFA endpoints where interactive ticket may be required to mediate a solution.
I can take that. The answer is yes. We do integrate with over 60 different third-party solutions, from ITSM to big data to other analytics tools. With any monitoring tool, you don't want it to be in a silo. So we want it to be part of an overall process, and integrating into other ITSM tools is a critical part of that. So it is a key support area of our solution. And be happy to discuss, particular integrations that are required.
Love that. Okay, guys, I do wish we had a little more time to dig into some questions. Unfortunately, we are going to have to wrap it up there. However, as I just said, you answered a couple of the questions that we had, so that's great. And all the questions that we didn't get to, I do want to remind you that we will make sure, Mark, Bob, that you and your team see them. So for those of you who are asking questions out there that didn't get an answer, Catchpoint will follow up with you, so you will get some answers to those. And, I'm going to throw this poll up here as well. I do want to make sure that if there's any additional information that you would like to get about the Catchpoint solution, that you let us know that. So I've said this to you a couple times already today, folks. This is such a great way to make your life a little bit easier. Get the information that you need. They're going to send it right to you. So all you have to do is click one button. The payout on this is great. One button and a ton of information is going to come right to your inbox. So go ahead and click that poll. It's really important for us to know how we can follow up, how we can help you along wherever you're at in your exploration of kind of supporting remote workforces. Guys, the other thing I want to say, I really appreciate how much why you put behind all of the reasons today, really connecting in each aspect of the solution to the problem it solves, to the why, to the end user, to the employee, to the leadership team. I think you've really made some very impactful points for our audience out there today. So I appreciate you both, and thanks so much for joining.
Our pleasure. Thanks very much for having us.
Indeed.
And just to follow up on what you just heard Mark saying there is a handout in the handout section that I'm going to highly recommend that you check out. It's a solution brief, Catchpoint Workforce Experience. So you can explore how to not just allow, but actually enable your workforce to work effectively from anywhere. It's a really great read, really engaging info. So please do go check that out now. Make sure that you've downloaded that and save that for later. Okay, well, thank you to everyone who filled out the poll and submitted a question. Again, those questions you will get a chance to get followed up with, so please do keep those coming in. And, oh my, look at that. We've got a prize giveaway. Okay, so prize giveaway here. We have a $500 Amazon gift card. This is our second one. Is going to Matt O'Donnell of South Carolina. Matt O'Donnell of South Carolina has won a $500 Amazon gift card. Congratulations, Matt, on your gift card. And I want to remind you that we've got 2 more chances to win, plus that best question asked in each section. And the only caveat is you have to be here. You have to be here hanging out, having a great day with us, and then you're entered to win. That's it. That's the game. So pretty easy, win-win there. All right, well, let's keep cruising along because we got a lot to cover. And up next, I am very excited to bring on our next presenter here. So we're going to chat with Okta, and this is Ryan Terry, Senior Solutions Product Marketing Manager here at Okta. Now, Ryan, I know you've got a lot of great stuff to cover. I'm really excited to get into it. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand the mic right on over to you.
Hello, my name is Ryan Terry. I'm a Senior Solutions Product Marketing Manager here at Okta, specifically covering our security solutions. And I'll be discussing today's distributed workforce landscape, including fully remote employees and hybrid working models, and how a zero trust security strategy is essential in supporting today's modern working environment. I'm going to cover why you should consider an identity-first approach to your zero trust security strategy, and what steps you can take immediately to help your organization advance towards that zero trust model and secure against the identity-driven threats that are so prevalent today. But before I get started, I want to kick things off with a little buzzword bingo. In today's landscape, technology and security teams are facing threats like phishing, ransomware, malware, DDoS, zero-day, and DNS attacks. To address these, we are seeing innovations that promise scalable, orchestrated, automated, next-gen technology that provides visibility and leverages machine learning, AI, and comprehensive behavioral context-aware monitoring. And on top of these threats, there are frameworks, regulation, and compliance requirements to adhere to. So what's left? Various strategies that all focus on evolving the way we think about securing our environments. But where should you start? You should start where it makes sense for your business, but we are engaged in a never-ending challenge to enable employees, business partners, and supply chain to access the resources they need to do their jobs effectively from anywhere they choose, home, at our physical company buildings, in airports and coffee shops, and so many more places, all while ensuring we are protecting those people and the resources they're accessing at all times. It's no longer news that companies need to support an increasingly distributed workforce. This really was the case already before the global pandemic, but now 82% of company leaders plan to allow employees to work remotely at least part of the time after the pandemic, and 47% plan to allow them to permanently work from home going forward. The game has changed, yet we still rely on the same approaches to protect ourselves. It's no wonder that cyber attacks appear to be 3 moves ahead. The surface that needs to be protected keeps shifting. The perimeter has changed. Even with everything we know, identity-based attacks are still the leading cause of compromise. More than 60% of all breaches involve stolen credentials. Phishing is increasingly present in the number of breaches tracked, and recent ransomware attacks have shut down schools and hospitals and affected the availability of fuel and food in the United States. While these buzzwords may foster a culture of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, we can't ignore that these are real problems that simply aren't going away. We have inadvertently left the back door open by not putting adequate protections in place for what is being thought of as the new perimeter. So we know organizations with gaps in their identity security stacks are significantly more at risk. In light of the current threat landscape, organizations around the world have moved past traditional security approaches and are widely adopting zero trust security strategies that are strongly recommended by industry analysts and in some cases even mandated by the federal government. It's safe to say that zero trust security has moved beyond buzzword status and is here to stay for the long term. Okta recently surveyed more than 600 security decision makers at companies around the world, and we've just released these findings in our 2021 State of Zero Trust Security Report. 90% of respondents stated they either have a zero trust initiative in place or will have one in the next 12 to 18 months. That's up from 41% in the 2020 report. When asked whether the pandemic or today's working environment has changed the prioritization of zero trust for their organizations, more than 3/4 or 78% of companies globally say that zero trust has increased in priority and in some cases has become the organization's top priority, as is the case with 36% of the Forbes Global 2000 companies and 30% of healthcare companies that were surveyed as part of this report. If we believe that identity is effectively the new perimeter for organizations today, then this is the logical place to start, no matter what overall security strategy you have prioritized. Identity ensures the right person has the right access in the right context, regardless of their location, device, or network. To that end, it's likely no surprise that organizations ranked people and devices as the top core security requirements within a zero trust security strategy in terms of priority. And this is part of that same zero trust report that Okta produced this year. Gartner has also listed identity first security on their top 10 security and risk management trends in 2021. Again, this really isn't any news. The control plane, the thing that connects all of our systems and processes, has always been identity. What has changed is how our architectures have evolved and become more complex. As more organizations move to modernize and go through a digital transformation, another buzzword, identity is becoming even more critical, which is why this is the logical starting point when you are considering how to evolve your approach to securing your environments. The real question is, are you prioritizing identity? And if you are, is your program robust and sufficient enough to shift towards a proactive protection layer? We're finding our customers are thinking about their identity and access management maturity in this way. And this is a model they're using to start their zero trust security initiatives. So starting from left to right with fragmented identity, where there's very little integration, a heavy reliance on passwords, and where a lot of the access decisions they're making are based on static policies. As programs mature, we start to unify identity and access management and set the groundwork for doing contextual access in a zero trust way. This means deploying single sign-on across employees, partners, and the supply chain, using modern multi-factor authentication, and unifying policies across apps and servers. Then as you continue to move towards the right, you get into the contextual access stage. This is where you're starting to use context-based access policies, like understanding whether a device is trusted or not. You're using multiple factors across user groups, like hard tokens or push verification, or even biometrics. And you're doing automated deprovisioning for people leaving your organization, or contractors as they no longer work with your organization, because you don't want them to have access to those resources once they're no longer working with you. And you're also providing secure access to APIs. And then in stage 3, this is the adaptive workforce stage. You're no longer relying on context-based policies, but really risk-based access policies to increase your security. Doing continuous and adaptive authentication and authorization and frictionless access, often in the form of passwordless authentication, which we're seeing many organizations start to think about over the coming 12 to 18 months. Our research found organizations around the world plan to make significant strides towards maturing on this identity and access management maturity curve in the coming 12 to 18 months. And I'm specifically going to cover where companies are at now and where they're focusing in the coming months from stages 1 through 3. So you can see here the majority of organizations have indicated that they've already implemented both single sign-on, SSO, and multi-factor authentication, MFA, for employees across resources within their organizations. The top priorities for organizations globally over the next 12 to 18 months are implementing SSO and MFA for external users like contractors, suppliers, and business partners, and also setting context-based access policies. This is likely due to the fact most organizations are working with so many folks outside their own organization, but still need access to resources and data to get their jobs done, all while supply chain attacks are consistently on the rise. So this is where you can take immediate action to mature within stage 1 of the maturity curve and begin to move towards stage 2. A quick example of a case study that aligns to stage one is the French Red Cross. The French Red Cross wanted a way to centralize the management of employee and volunteer accounts within a single system. With all accounts now integrated and managed within the Okta Identity Cloud, the team has greater visibility over all of their accounts. Okta Workflows also improves a number of processes. For example, the team needed a way of rapidly creating temporary accounts. The team developed a solution in 2 weeks where an internal user can create a new temporary account, which will automatically expire within 48 hours without any support from the IT team. Again, stage two is the contextual access stage. You can see here that organizations are primarily focusing on securing access to APIs, deploying multiple factors across user groups, and automating the provisioning and deprovisioning of employees now and in the coming months. These are some areas of focus for you to consider whether they make sense for your specific organization to remove risk and add stronger authentication across your resources. But these projects are on the tops of the minds of your peers and companies of all sizes in all industries and locations around the world. These projects will help you move from stage 2 to stage 3 and continue to advance your zero trust strategies. To include an example here, we've got a quick case study with T-Mobile. While I could spend a lot of time sharing zero trust journey of T-Mobile, let me pick one example of how they leveraged Okta and our identity platform. They utilized our attribute-based access control, which employs user attributes such as position, department, and business roles to assign users access. Access evaluation results could be allowing access to resources, denying access, or challenging for MFA with higher assurance. Context could also vary with the type of application. For example, a mobile app may require implementing a mobile device management or MDM profile to ensure security level required for a client integrity and source of origination. This is really just one example. T-Mobile has achieved incredible results during this journey. Okta's solution also helped them save 15% in operational costs, which at the scale of T-Mobile is a significant dollar number. Finally, in stage 3, adaptive workforce, we asked respondents whether they plan to adopt passwordless authentication. One way organizations can increase flexibility is by embracing passwordless access while using high assurance factors. Given the insecurity of passwords, particularly since 73% of online accounts use duplicated passwords, credential harvesting tends to be one of the most fruitful tactics for today's threat actors. Relying on passwords alone leaves organizations vulnerable to password spray and credential stuffing attacks. Multiple high assurance factors, such as factor sequencing, biometric-based logins through WebAuthn or U2F security keys, can mitigate these risks and provide the flexibility of passwordless authentication. This year, more than a quarter of respondents said they either have or will soon have implemented passwordless access options for their users. For Global 2000 companies, that's even higher, as 50% will have adopted passwordless options in the next 12 to 18 months. FedEx has spent 20 years spinning up IAM point solutions and found it was consistently playing a game of whack-a-mole from a security perspective. Each solution created a bigger attack surface for the company, more friction for its software developers, and multiple logins for employees. In order for FedEx to achieve its zero trust vision, it needed to establish trusted relationships between multiple vendors, including VMware and Workspace ONE. FedEx adopted the Okta solution and provides simple and secure access to SaaS, cloud native, and legacy applications. With the Okta Identity Cloud, FedEx has achieved its zero trust vision. reduced its attack surface, replacing 5 legacy IAM systems with one, Okta, and enhanced the end user experience by enabling passwordless authentication in certain scenarios. Identity and access management provides you with a single control plane to manage risk-based access for everyone and to all of the things they need access to. Everyone means your employees, business partners, contractors, suppliers, machines, and so on. Everything means all of the apps, servers, APIs, networks that they use and they access, regardless of whether they're cloud or on-prem. And at the heart of this control plane is a risk engine that takes different signals to help determine if access should be granted easily, passwordless, stepped up, i.e. MFA, or even denied altogether. So now we've discussed how others are prioritizing identity, and it's clear why you should start with identity. But let's chat about why not everyone is doing this already. There is no question that there's fundamental challenges at the business level around funding and prioritization, at the people level with identity and security teams being disconnected, and at the technical level with a complex mix of legacy and cloud technologies. Identity can be prioritized as a foundational part of your security strategy. A key component of getting started is to ensure you have appropriate sponsorship. This is an initiative that needs to come from the bottom up and the top down. According to the recent study by Logarithm and Ponemon Group, one of the biggest blockers is when the executive level doesn't have a clear understanding of the potential impact of security incidents and feel that IT leaders don't fundamentally understand the business goals. Not only do we need alignment at the business level, but we also need to align core priorities and foster collaboration between security and identity teams. With appropriate funding, prioritization and cooperation between teams adopting the right technology is the last piece of the puzzle. Complex or legacy architectures can be modernized with the adoption of agnostic platforms that bring everything together and create a common identity source that has security controls like authentication and policies. Each access attempt needs to be verified regardless of who or where it's coming from. The real magic of our secure identity platform isn't just all of the risk signals we evaluate within Okta, it's how we share those signals across your security stack of choice. We have over 7,000 pre-built integrations across applications and infrastructure. Many of these integrations allow us to ingest security signals to make context access decisions, such as device compromise signals with CrowdStrike or understanding highly targeted users from Proofpoint. We believe your identity control plane needs to enable flexibility and choice both today and tomorrow. We want to be your strategic business partner for identity, and we're well on our way to achieving our vision of a unified access management, identity governance, and privilege access platform. Our goal is to relieve our customers from the complexity and overhead they experience with traditional solutions, and ultimately help them deliver a secure, scalable, and compliance-based access experience that fully supports their business goals and objectives. So for next steps, I encourage you to check out our State of Zero Trust Security Report and take our Identity and Zero Trust Assessment. Both can be found on okta.com under Solutions, and then specifically under our Zero Trust Solution webpage. Both will help you understand where your peers are at, where your organization is at within the identity and access management maturity model, and what specific next steps you can take to advance towards your zero trust security initiatives. Thank you very much for your time today. If you have any other questions, please go to okta.com and have a great day. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ryan, for an awesome presentation. Lots of great info. I do want to really quickly point out to everyone out there that I have put up a poll for you here, and we would love to know what additional information you would all like to get about the Okta solution. So we just got a lot of really great information from Ryan, who was walked us through the solution and how it can benefit you. Now, if you're curious, you're interested, you want to learn a little bit more, this is the best way to do that you can just click once and we'll get you some information and make sure that Okta gets you everything that you need in order to kind of keep moving along and keep exploring this solution. So please do take a moment there and fill out that poll. I also want to remind you, so Ryan, you were just mentioning the State of Zero Trust Security in 22 report. Now, that is actually loaded in the Handouts tab. So if you head over to that Handouts tab, you can find that full report there. Download that. It is a super interesting read, little light afternoon reading on the state of zero trust security in 2022. So download that, save that for later. Make sure that you spend a little bit of time with that information. Really, really great and worth the read. Ryan, I want to say thank you again to you for a wonderful presentation. I also want to thank everyone who asked a question. I am seeing lots of great questions coming in. I wish we could pause here and take a little time to dig in. Unfortunately, we are short on time. We're a little behind schedule. Some of you may have noticed. So we do need to keep moving things along in the EcoCast. So we will leave questions there, but Ryan and the team will follow up with you. So Okta will get all of the questions that you asked, and they will make sure to follow up with you after we wrap today. Make sure that you get answers to the questions that you still have. And I can see that there's lots. I love all this. I love the curiosity coming from the crew today. Well, speaking of being a little bit behind, we're going to move things along pretty quickly here. I'm going to jump on into our next presentation. This one's going to be a fun one. I'm really excited for you to get into it. I'm happy to introduce you all to our next wonderful presenter in today's EcoCast. This is Seema Kathuria, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Duo Security. Seema, thank you so much for being here with us. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. We're having an awesome time on the EcoCast today, and I'm really excited to hear a little bit more from you. I know we want to leave some time for questions, and I'll join you in just a moment for that. So until then, the platform is all yours.
Everyone, my name is Seema Kathuria. I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager at Duo Security, and I'm really pleased to share with you today secure access for the remote workforce. Here's the agenda. I will start off by talking a little bit about the context for why we're here today, the changes that we've seen with remote work, and some of the security things to look out for when it comes to remote work. In particular, then I will dive into why securing access to applications is so critical. And finally, I'll share some information with you on the Duo single sign-on solution that empowers remote workers to easily and conveniently access applications while maintaining security. So in the world we live today, we know that remote work is becoming commonplace. And with it, it's really important for organizations to think about how they can protect users and the ability for them to access with convenience, but without compromising security. So we'll talk about that. Remote work is largely becoming the new normal. It's less and less common, especially if you look at a lot of the IT space and a lot of the workers that work in IT, myself included. We are primarily working from home. In fact, there's a statistic that came that said that we're expecting that, and this is just from 3 years of the 2019 to 2021, the number of people working from home primarily tripled from about 9 million to 27.6 million during that period, which is quite incredible. And you can understand that this number could even increase over time now that we're in 2022. And when people are asked in a certain survey, would they like to work flexibly? In fact, 87% of people will want to work flexibly given the opportunity. So as people are looking for new jobs, new opportunities, or thinking about making a shift where they would have more flexibility, a vast majority want to have that opportunity. And so that is putting pressure in a way upon companies to really rethink their hybrid work or on-premise work strategy and how they need to shift away from just pure on-premise in many cases if it allows for productivity. In fact, all professional jobs are expected to be remote by end of 2022. So imagine things like IT services, those things that can be transacted online through the internet are more apt to actually going remote. And we expect remote opportunities for different employees to continue to increase through even 2023. So going from now, we're almost at the end of 2022 until next year, we're expecting that trend to continue where people not only expect to have flexibility, but organizations will allow that flexibility depending again on the type of work. With this new normal, it's really important to consider the security risks associated with remote work. Number one is remote workers can pose a greater risk than pure on-site employees. What you don't see can actually pose risk. In fact, according to a survey of VPs and C-suite IT executives, 73% felt that remote workers actually do pose a greater risk. And so this goes to show that at the very top, the top level decision makers in companies are concerned. It's really a business level decision and a strategy they need to be putting together in terms of how do they kind of drive a strong security strategy and solution set that's going to really reduce that risk and footprint while allowing for flexibility for remote workers. The second reality is identity-based attacks, those that can compromise credentials, things like phishing, when you look at certain users using certain devices and being really duped in terms of their identity, that's becoming commonplace. And these kinds of attacks are prevailing in a remote work world, especially because when you think about it, we can probably use some of our personal devices to transact our corporate emails and our corporate resources. They can be cloud-based resources that we access from our phones. And so while we're getting that convenience, we need to be careful that we don't compromise the device, or by accident, it gets in the hands of someone who would actually go ahead and use our identity to go in and infiltrate some data. So identity-based attacks are a really big concern with remote work. And finally, a lot of the information and data has moved to the cloud. When you look at different kinds of cloud solutions out there for productivity, be it email, either through Google, through Microsoft, email and Outlook, when you look at things like in data that's being shared through things like Box or through a SharePoint and OneDrive. So all these different things really allow the convenience, but at the end of the day, 80% of organizations are experiencing, and they've said they've experienced cloud-related security incidents. So it's really becoming important for organizations to have a very strong cloud security paradigm and posture, and they need to really be thinking through their cloud first and cloud security, what that kind of solution set looks like, because at the end of the day, if data gets compromised in the cloud, it becomes very expensive for them to have to respond to that. So the more proactive measures, the better. And thinking through that remote work strategy with security as a huge part of that strategy is really paramount. When it comes to application access in particular, one of the big challenges that continues to be for end users is there are too many logins. I mean, think about it. An average organization that's using up to 300 applications, all these different workers have to think about what passwords they have to put in place. Oftentimes they're asked to create really strong passwords that are complicated. So without a really, good way to manage those passwords and having to go to those applications day in and day out, it becomes very difficult and really, really hard to manage those different passwords and credentials. The second point is there's a high IT management and help desk support cost when it comes to forgetting passwords that end users need to go back and get help from the IT or help desk. It's a really big time grab for them. They have to spend a lot of time on resetting passwords and helping those users to get back productive once they forgot their password. And then not to mention, in the meanwhile, if that password were compromised by a insider or by an external attacker, then imagine that ongoing cost also that has to be dealt with. The third point is there's a trade-off between user productivity and better security. When it comes to a lot of different applications that users have to use and they have to manage all those passwords, they're probably not going to be productive. Every time they forget and they have to reset a password, they're having to think about to remember which password, which particular username was associated with each of these different applications. It can be quite cumbersome. And in the meanwhile, the security also is not intact because we know that credential compromise is a very common attack today, in addition to web applications that are getting compromised with compromised credentials. So it's really important to have strong security without losing that user productivity that's paramount. And finally, we know that one of the most common attacks is actually finding on the black market. These attackers will find reused passwords. They'll see a list of passwords that has been used over and over by certain users, and then they can go ahead and launch those attacks. So reusing and using simple passwords is simply very risky. And so maybe a solution which allows for fewer passwords is really where that can help an organization have that ability to have the applications be accessed by those users, but without having the challenges that are posed by all those different passwords. So we've talked about the risks associated with these different applications being used and having different passwords to be able to log in with. We know that securing access to applications is a really critical part of that overall security strategy an organization needs to put in place. In particular, at the end of the day, what is going to be at risk? It'll be the data. The data is going to be exposed or compromised through those applications that are being accessed by the user. In a remote first world, if you really think about it, the lines are pretty blurry between insiders and outsiders. It's no longer a case where you know for sure that this particular employee is right now on the inside or they're coming from the outside. If they're working remotely, in a way, you don't have a lot of visibility, except for the fact that, of course, you need to have a very strong identity solution in place, in which case you do know that, in this case, myself, Seema, it belongs to this company, and she should have access to these particular applications because she's working for this company. That's really kind of coming down to role-based access, for example. So robust access control is really critical in a remote first world. Granting employees more privilege than they should have is really, really risky also. We know from a zero trust perspective, you want to limit and really control which applications a particular user can access by virtue of their role. Also by virtue of what devices they're on. Are they coming from a personal device that may not be up to date or have antivirus installed, for example? So giving more access than required poses insider risk for sure. Even an employee that should be allowed access, should they be allowed access at all times and from certain devices in certain locations? Those things need to be locked down and thought about. Applications will be, at the end of the day, the conduit to sensitive data. It could be corporate intellectual property. It could be customer data that is really, really needing to be protected, as well as personal identifiable information. I mean, think about even simple things like my home address. I don't want that to be exposed to anyone out there. So it's really important that the organization is protecting that personal data of employees, of customers at all times. And so by protecting and really limiting application access is certainly one way to really reduce that risk footprint. And finally, at the end of the day, businesses have to be staying in business. They need to be able to do what their mission is, whether it is protecting patients in a healthcare environment, whether it is their manufacturing environment where they need to go ahead and transact and be able to build products safely and securely. They cannot afford data breaches to happen. And the reality is that they do continue to happen. So how do they mitigate the risks that are associated with data breaches and also non-compliance when it comes to certain fines that are industry-wide for them, where they need to show that they're keeping things private, that the customer data is being secured, employee data is secured. They want to really mitigate the chances of reputational damage, and in cases of public companies, reduced stock value that can happen if they actually do have a data breach. So by having a strong access control in place for application access will really mitigate that impact that could happen from a data breach, and also in a compliance environment, make them have you'll have a stronger posture if you put in place the right kind of access controls. How can Duo single sign-on in particular, which is part of our Duo portfolio, this product empower remote workers? Let's talk about that next. So the solution Duo single sign-on really is a window into the applications of an end user who needs to access those applications to do their work, to stay productive. However, security should not be compromised. So with single sign-on, the benefit, of course, is that now you have a single set of username and password credential that allows you to get into all these different applications that you are allowed to as an employee. The employee will have a certain department they're part of, a certain role, and they can now have that security in mind that now that administrator has put in place security policies to allow that user. In this case, we're showing an example here, John Doe, who should access certain of these applications. We're just showing a couple of them as an example here, as part of his role in the company, and be able to just log in once into their corporate account and be able to access these applications from a single pane of glass, a web-based page here called Duo Central. The benefits are, of course, greater security, because now that John Doe doesn't have multiple passwords to manage and have to update, and also the IT help desk is not having to kind of reset all these different passwords, it really improves that security posture. There's also less complexity involved. Now John doesn't have to think of creating different kinds of passwords for different applications. And of course, here with single sign-on, Duo's benefit is that we've always had a very strong multi-factor authentication that helps you have that second factor authentication that is going to front end your applications. So meaning that you can have that multi-factor authentication integrated with single sign-on in a way that we know that user has been verified, that John Doe is who he claims to be. He is part of this company and these credentials belong to him. And then he's going to go ahead and validate that through a second factor authentication, either through a mobile device, push kind of a notification, or it could be through a number of alternative means. At the end of the day, single sign-on combined with this multi-factor auth can help you reduce that data breach risk that we talked about earlier, really kind of ensuring that this person who they claim to be and they can access these applications from this particular device even. It enhances the application security posture because these applications obviously have critical data behind them. So it's important to actually front end with strong security in place when the user is logging in. The employee's experience is really, really positive. We've heard from a number of our customers across different organizations saying that we really are pleased with, once we were training our users on how to use this Duo Central piece, this page, they'll bookmark it and be able to get their job started right away once they've logged in that first time in the morning. There's only one password. There's no this notion of having more than one password to remember. And you can even configure single sign-on, Duo single sign-on with passwordless authentication to reduce that one password down to 0. So imagine a world where now you don't even have to think about what your password is, because now it's simply using maybe your biometric, your face on your, or it could be some touch ID on your device that you just log in with, and it's very fast, it's seamless, and it's all working really securely behind the scenes. You can access these applications from any location or device as long as that device, again, has been checked. We have a number of capabilities within the Duo platform, of which SSO is part of, where you can actually do device checking in terms of the health of device. If the device is looking healthy, yes, that application can be accessed by that user on that device. So you really have that flexibility for remote work to be able to access applications from pretty much anywhere, be it a coffee shop, be it maybe even a beach for that matter. And of course, time and cost savings are a big, thing that a business is really looking for at all times. They want to maintain their business. Their mission could be completely different. Their mission is not necessarily that they're trying to just protect the users, but that should enable them. They want to save time having to onboard their new employees, offboard those employees from those applications. It is so much easier with single sign-on. It's just that single credential. So once that person has been offboarded, they no longer, as a company, have to remind themselves, oh, does this person have access to this application still? No, they've kind of been dropped from that directory at that point. They're kind of no longer part of that organization, and they're no longer able to access any of those applications. So single sign-on really reduces that impact. And there are a number of self-service capabilities for end users. They can access all their applications here, even bookmarks for that matter, can be configured in the same Duo Central pane of glass on the left. So it's very convenient for the user. They don't have to go to any help desk. Also for managing enrolled devices. Maybe they want to enroll their own personal mobile device. In my case, if I'm using my Apple iPhone to authenticate myself using the Duo MFA, I can go and do that on my own time in Duo Central. So I have the convenience of going to my applications and disenrolling or enrolling new devices right from that same place. This ultimately helps in reducing overhead costs, both password reset management, enrolling new devices, onboarding, offboarding employees, makes it really easy for the IT and help desk teams, reducing that time as well as saving costs for the company. In terms of the key benefit features, when you look at the Duo single sign-on, the way it works is the user is going to go and they'll want to be requesting access to certain cloud apps here shown on the right. They could be on-prem apps as well, but more commonly, we're also seeing a lot of the cloud apps being accessed. Duo is going to come in, and we really are a cloud-hosted SAML identity provider, combining that SAML identity provider capabilities with MFA, where Duo is going to front end and go ahead and intercept in a way that user and make sure that they're authenticated before giving them access to those applications. We work with identity providers, multiple different ones out there, the very common ones, in order to get that primary auth source and then leverage that identity verification into our second factor auth. We can support the cloud and on-premises apps, so it makes it very flexible for companies. And today we're also happy to share that we're also going into not only supporting SAML 2.0 as a authentication source, we're going to also be able to allow for OIDC, and we'll transact applications that are using the OIDC auth protocol to allow that secure access through single sign-on. And that is in public preview. We also are able to customize that Duo Central portal, the cloud-hosted portal for you. So if you want to be able to brand it to your own company name, it's very seamless for the end user to be able to understand, yes, this is where I expect to go. This is my company brand. I can trust this cloud portal to actually host all my applications I need to access. It's very fast too and easy to set up. So I encourage you to try out, if you've not already, the Duo single sign-on product, to go ahead and add your applications as the admin and go ahead and allow employees to onboard to those applications. It's one of the most easy and very well documented solutions. And finally, last but not least, Duo single sign-on is free for any paid customers of ours. So you're getting the benefit of Duo single sign-on. Passwordless authentication is also net new. That's something you can get once you buy into even the baseline MFA edition. You'll get the benefits of single sign-on. So the key, take home here is that you want to allow, as an organization, to allow that flexible remote work for all these different users that could be logging in from different locations, just to be able to continue their productivity, to be allowing them to continue working from wherever they need to be. At the same time, you don't want to compromise security, and that's where you can work with a partner like Duo Security to be able to allow for that single pane of glass, that single sign-on, seamless access to those applications. And finally, I'd like to share with you some key security recommendations, not just from Duo, but really from a Forbes article that came out in this year, talking about this notion of being able to have different kinds of different layers and different aspects of security that you should be thinking about for remote work. One, of course, is configuring the single sign-on, really reduce all those passwords down to 1 or even 0 if you go passwordless. The second is enforce your multi-factor authentication or use the passwordless authentication. Something you have, something you know, something you are. And with the something you are is where passwordless auth comes in. And it's just game changing for companies that are starting to adopt that, because now they again don't have to have their users have to manage any passwords at all, really, and they can authenticate once and get into their applications. So I would say these are one of the best ways with MFA and passwordless auth is to really reduce that data breach risk footprint. And the third big point is employing those least privilege access policies that we talked about before, because at the end of the day, if someone has a higher, more privileged role in the company and they should access more sensitive data, they also should be bound by that same policy where they're not getting more access than required or for a longer time than required. And these policies should be part and parcel of your security overall strategy. Keeping devices up to date is the next big fourth point, only because devices will get out of date. There'll be new malware and attacks that are going to be out there in the wild. It's really important to kind of stay up to date on the antivirus, and the anti-malware solution is the next part of that on those devices, as well as making sure you're protecting data. Last but not least is protecting data, whether it be data that is being transacted through applications, whether it is directly looking at the data governance that you have around certain kinds of data that you believe is really, really sensitive in that company. It could be corporate data, it could be customer data. How do you really lock it down? How do you really reduce that amount of access to that data, and ensure again that anyone who's going to be accessing that data through applications is being checked for from an identity perspective. And that's where again Duo can come in, is be that secondary authenticator, and then also enforce that single sign-on so that that user is only accessing what they need to for the time that they need to. Here's a nice customer quote from one of our financial services customers, Globe Life. They actually chose to go beyond and actually use and switch over from an incumbent solution to Duo. They said that they were able to deploy Duo across several of their domains, and it easily scaled to all their users without additional overhead. In fact, they also talk about cost savings, which is incredible, $30,000 a year in licensing costs alone. So with the cost savings, with the ability to be more productive with their employees, because the employees now they could just go to that one single pane of glass, Duo Central, log in once with a single credential, and then get into their applications. They said that that was really going to help save the hassle, so that the IT desk also has to be bombarded with different kind of password resets. It's just really a helpful solution for them holistically. And also with the licensing costs being saved, they said it just made sense to move from incumbent solution to Duo. I encourage you to learn more about Duo Single Sign-On. Certainly visit our website. I've included the link here to our Duo Single Sign-On page on duo.com. And we have an upcoming webinar hosted by Duo Security. It is about saving time and saving money through Duo's now new passwordless capabilities that you can get from the Duo Single Sign-On product. And I encourage you to check that out. And finally, last but not least, do try out Duo for free for 30 days. You'll have access to our middle tier edition, Duo Access, which gives you not only the ability to perform Duo Single Sign-On and enforce that, but you also get Duo MFA. You also have the ability to also look at some of the device health situations, like whether the device is healthy or not, and so be able to have a little bit more granular policies that are pertaining to both the devices and the applications that your users need to access, and being able to control some of that. So I encourage you to try that out, and then if of course you like it, more than happy to kind of convert that at that point to a paid edition. And this is a monthly subscription on a per user basis, and so again, more than welcome to visit our website duo.com and check that out.
All right. Well, Seema, you ready to dive into some questions here?
Yes, sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that presentation. First, I do have to say, I love the point that you made about the blurred lines between and maybe reframing the definitions of insiders versus outsiders. And as a password overloaded human, I just love the idea of both single sign-on and passwordless would just be amazing. So some really awesome information, great tips and tricks for our audience. We've got a lot of great questions coming in already. I want to get to as many of those as we can. I know we've got a tight time frame. Seema, you ready to dive into some questions?
Yes, let's do that, Jess.
All right. So first up, I think this is a really good one. And a lot of times people are out there, they're looking at a lot of different solutions. They're trying to find the best tool for them. So we have an audience member here wondering about the specific advantages of Duo Single Sign-On. What makes you unique?
Yes, thank you. Great question. So we're often asked this question. And on the one hand, we have a set of customers who are using Duo multi-factor authentication today. They're finding the benefit of it, it being, again, pretty easy to deploy, a nice way for them to obviously do a checkbox on a lot of the cyber liability insurance requirements today. So there's that aspect of Duo having already been at the forefront of Duo multi-factor authentication as a very strong security strategy, just to be able to mitigate a lot of the risks associated with data breaches. So that's one point to be made, is Duo single sign-on. It integrates very seamlessly with Duo MFA. A number of our customers today use Duo single sign-on with their MFA solution from Duo, only because now they say, look, it's a single pane of glass. From an administrative perspective, Duo's admin panel gives me the ability to apply those application granular policies on specific applications that I know are already front-ended with MFA. So XYZ user, maybe John Doe, is already having to authenticate into the application. Now, why don't I just make it easier for him to be able to authenticate and log in one time to all these applications that he has? So with that peace of mind that I know that it's being a secure transaction every time he is actually logging in, I know that he'll be enforcing that 2FA on him. So I think that integration is a really key factor that's been very beneficial, because there's a low time to value. The IT admin doesn't have to learn a whole lot. They already know the deal. They know the portfolio, how the platform works, how the administrative panel works, and the documentation is very strong. That's the first point. If you're not yet a Duo customer, the other point to be made is that Duo has always been very much a security-centric company. Duo started off in security, recognizing that it's been a big pain in a way for customers. For example, even in a healthcare environment, one example was that doctors were having to manage a lot of these old style tokens around their neck. And so they said, look, is there a better way that is secure, but at the same time convenient for us? And we said, why not kind of go towards a more mobile authenticator MFA solution? So we believe in not compromising security, in fact, but putting that at the forefront without losing the user experience. So I would say that we've always built into Duo single sign-on also this idea that we don't want to compromise security. We want to build in security from the forefront. We will continue to work with a primary IDP solution, not having to kind of take everything at once, but we'll focus on the security aspect. We'll build the Duo single sign-on product such that it's a cloud-hosted service that is fully being secured. We provide strong SLAs for our service, so we have that confidence that our customers are there and they'll be protected at all times. And then we have the ability for them to have that high availability also. And so I think that's the other area that's important. Is Duo security always came from a security vantage point, not necessarily identity, but we worked with the best-in-class IDPs out there so that we can focus on security. The third point I want to take home is this notion of cloud first. And so Duo Security has always been a cloud first company. We believe that that's the conduit. Security and software go really hand in hand. So with the software being really our way to be able to help customers at the end of the day have that security, regardless of what devices they're giving to their employees, regardless of what systems they have in place, old on-premises systems, newer systems that are up to date, and maybe their mobile devices that have not been patched today and they need to be updated. So we keep in mind, how do we use cloud fundamentally as a game changer, where we will go ahead and maintain that cloud service, whether it's MFA, single sign-on, or it's even device checking. We'll maintain that service for you and make sure that you're getting the most up-to-date security and you're getting that benefit from Duo, because we can kind of be there for you as a partner without you having to manage all that on-premises kind of hardware necessarily, and reducing that ability, that kind of impact to you in terms of cost. So I think that that's another thing to note, is that we've always been very cloud centric, and we understand the cloud. We understand the benefits of being able to send that strong security intelligence back to the customer on what new things are coming up in their landscape. We'll have some strong reports that they can look at and actively monitor if there's any new threats that's come in, and if they need to go ahead and update their devices. We make it intuitive. The customer, literally their end user on their mobile device, will get a little pop-up saying that, look, you might want to update your software here on your Apple or your Windows device, and you need to go ahead and update. And at that point, we'll let you authenticate your application. So we make it very seamless. The cloud is really, I think, a game changer. And, I think that those are not on board. We'll, eventually have to get on board with the cloud. So security, cloud, and the ability to really, take advantage of the MFA solution that so many people have started, they've trusted with Duo for so many years is our strong points.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, those are a lot of really good uniques. Seema, I have to say, I wish we could keep going, but we are short on time. I know there's a lot of questions that we didn't get to. We will make sure that those get to the Duo security team. Before you run away, Seema, if somebody out there is really ready to get started, they want to jump in with that free trial, or they want to have a conversation, what's the very first step to getting started?
I encourage a lot of you to actually go to the do.com page to go ahead and download that free trial right away. I think that's realistically in our very early days of DO security, that's what organizations did. A lot of them were the small to medium businesses. They said, hey, we need a strong MFA solution because we want to make sure that we're locking down the user and making sure that they are who they are. So they just started the DO 30-day trial. And now we're happy to share it's the second tier edition. So you're not just getting the baseline MFA SSO, you're getting some more capabilities on the device posture side also. So I encourage you to download that trial and look at our documentation. It's definitely there for the taking, and we have some solid documentation within the DO admin panel itself that you'll take advantage of. So please do. And again, we're here for you if you have questions.
Well, those are some great ways to get started. It's a great solution. Thank you so much again, Seema, for being here. What a fascinating conversation. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today.
Thank you so much, Jess. Have a good day.
Well, yeah, thank you, Seema, and a lot of fun to chat with you. Definitely some great information for our audience. I have put up a poll here. You guys should be familiar with this. I feel like you could do this in your sleep now. What additional information would you like about the Duo solution? So we just got some incredible insight from Seema, lots of great things to think about, lots of cool takeaways. And, if you're out there thinking, this sounds really good, Duo might be a good option for us, but you're not really sure, you want to do a little bit more digging, or you're not sure what your next step should be, hey, this is an easy way to get that information. So let Duo know how they can follow up with you. Make your life simple and easy. Click on that poll and let them send you the information that you need that's going to be best for you wherever you're at in your kind of research there. Now, I know there was a lot of questions that we didn't get to. I do want to remind you all that we are going to come back to those. We will make sure that those get to the Duo security team. So you will get solutions and answers back on all of the questions that you asked. I also want to remind you, if you have not visited it already, please check out the Handouts tab. You can download the Duo Security Single Sign-On handout there, learn a little bit more about giving your users secure and convenient application access, and really get to know that solution a little bit better. So do click into that Handouts tab, download that, hang out with us now, but that'll be fun to come back to when we wrap up the webinar at the end of the session here. But before we get to that, we've got a few more exciting presentations left, so do not leave us. Don't go anywhere. If you need to refresh your coffee, I get it, but run back because I'm very, very excited to introduce you all to our next presenter in our EcoCast today. So up next, we're going to hear from Alan Yu, Head of Product at Glean. Alan, thank you so much for joining us here on the EcoCast. I know that you've got some really great content lined up for us. So without any further fanfare here, I'm going to hand the mic on over to you.
All right. Thank you so much. Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Alan, and I lead the product team here at Glean. And today I'm excited to tell you more about what we're building and how it can really help your remote teams work faster and smarter. And actually, before I get started, I'd actually love to hear from all of you. I'm really curious, how many different software applications do people at your company use? We didn't set up a poll, but feel free to drop a number in the chat, and we'll circle back to that in a minute. So I wanted to sort of just take a minute to talk about, the modern knowledge worker. So they're working remotely or in a hybrid environment, so their work happens almost entirely in the digital realm. And really the information landscape in the modern enterprise has evolved. So our modern knowledge worker is communicating primarily through Slack and Teams internally, through maybe email externally. They're collaborating on documents in Google Drive and Office with their team. They're reading and writing documentation in wiki tools like Notion and Confluence, as well as in Google Sites or in enablement tools like HighSpot. They work with tickets in Jira and ServiceNow, and then they're finding company and people resources on their intranet and in Workday. And when you put all of this together, they end up working with an enormous amount of information on a daily basis, and it's spread across countless applications, documents, microsites, portals, hubs, messages, etc. And this entire web of knowledge is what we internally call the broader intranet. And this is kind of the reality of what employees are living and breathing on a daily basis. And each one of these tools individually is great, but when you have dozens or hundreds of them, there's a really painful side effect, which is that it's really hard to find the information that you need. The information ends up being really siloed. This slows people down, and it inhibits collaboration. And I'm sure you've experienced this yourselves, but the data backs it up too. So McKinsey did this study of knowledge workers and found that on average, they're spending 19% of their work week either looking for information or looking for colleagues who can help them. Similarly, Stack Overflow conducts a survey every year of software developers, and depending on how the question is framed, pretty much half of them are struggling with finding information, or struggling with knowledge being siloed, or struggling with wasting time answering repeated questions from their teams. So, I think there's all this data out there. I would also encourage you, if you haven't already, to ask your employees and don't just lean on these studies. Are they struggling with information and tool overload? Are they having trouble finding the information they need? The other thing to keep in mind is that this problem is actually only getting worse with time. You're buying more and more apps every year. You may have seen this chart before, but Okta does this annual report that shows very clearly that the number of apps is growing over time, and many industries now average over 100, 120, 150 different applications in the enterprise. So I assume this is, based on what you all are using, that this is kind of the landscape that you're seeing at your companies as well. And then finally, as I'm sure you've experienced, remote work only accentuates the problem. You can't just tap someone on the shoulder. You feel bad interrupting someone with a Slack ping. Maybe you have a question and you want to send them a message, but it takes a really long time to write up all the context, or maybe you don't even know who to ask. And a prime example of this is, imagine being a new employee at the company and you're onboarded remotely, and you really have no idea where to go to find the information that you need to get started. And so really, all this is to paint a picture of the modern knowledge worker. This is kind of the reality of what they're living and breathing. They're overloaded with information and apps. They're getting more and more overloaded every year. And on top of that, they're remote and they don't know where to go to find the right people or information. So at Glean, we believe that work doesn't need to be this way. Our mission is to bring you the knowledge that you need to make a difference in the world and to empower you to work faster and smarter. And the way that we're doing that, our vision is really this one intelligent hub for all of your workplace information. It puts everything you need right at your fingertips. So whatever you're looking for, you can start with Glean. And to us, this is kind of a new way to work. And for me personally, there's something really fundamental, and it's a problem that I'm personally really passionate about. I believe that knowledge is the driving force behind human progress, and I believe that people fundamentally need better tools for working with knowledge. And this has kind of been this consistent theme of products that I've worked on in my career, and really excited to kind of do that here at Glean and bring it to the enterprise. One way that we think about it is, if you imagine trying to use the internet today without Google or without tools like Google, that's actually kind of what knowledge work is like today. We have so much information flying around the enterprise, but we're still using tools that are decades old. And that's slowing us down, and it really doesn't need to be that way. And at the end of the day, I think a company where information is flowing faster is going to move a lot faster. It's really that simple. So I'll dive into a demo in a second, but just to kind of tee it up, this is a way to think about what we're building at Glean. It all starts with the foundation of our enterprise knowledge graph, and what that is we actually index all of the content, the documents, messages, tickets, customers, etc., as well as all of the people, as well as all of the interactions. So, which documents are linking to each other, which messages point to which documents, which people work closely with each other, which people have been editing or commenting in different documents. And we put all of that together into this massive graph, very similar to what Google does with the web. And on top of that, we add a layer of state-of-the-art machine learning and intelligence. And what that allows us to do is build these solutions that help you in your information finding journeys in the workplace. So the first one is search, which is self-explanatory. The second is Work Hub, which you can think of as a modern complement or alternative to your traditional intranet. The third is knowledge management, which is how do you organize and maintain knowledge all in one unified system across your different apps. And the fourth is security and data loss prevention. So how do you govern sensitive and overshared content at enterprise scale? All right, so with that as kind of the framework, let's go ahead and dive into the demo. Let's pretend that I'm a new engineer at Glean. I'm working remotely, and it's my first day on the job. So to see why Glean is useful, let's go ahead and just search for new hire onboarding. And right off the bat, you see we get 28,000 results from across dozens of different apps that we use internally here at Glean. And if I knew that what I was looking for lived in Confluence or maybe lived in Drive, I could quickly filter down to that. Or if I wanted to filter by, when the doc was last edited or who's worked on it or what type of document it is, I could easily filter by that as well. But you see, the result that shows up at the top is the new hire onboarding hub, which in this case is exactly what I'm looking for. And there are a couple of things that I want to call out about how our search works. The first is that it's strictly permissions enforced. And what I mean by that is, Glean is a signed in user experience. So in this case, it knows that Alan is the person doing the searching. And if I didn't have access to these documents in the source app, so in Confluence or in Drive, I would never see those results in Glean search. That's obviously really important from a privacy and security perspective. The second thing to call out is that it's deeply personalized. And that's important because, with 28,000 results, or in many cases, millions of results, what's relevant to an engineer is very different from what's relevant to a salesperson. And what's relevant in the US is very different from what's relevant in APAC. All right, so one thing that we've heard a lot from our customers is it's great that I'm seeing all these results, but hey, I'm new. I don't really know which results I can trust, which results are fresh or up to date. And to help with that, we have this feature called verification. So this green check mark means that the subject matter expert has come in and verified this document so that their team can trust it and use it confidently. If you weren't sure, if you wanted to check, you could request verification on any search result you come across. Or if you're the subject matter expert and you know that this document is now stale, you could come in and deprecate it, which would bury it in the search results. Another thing that we've heard is the need to be able to control the results for important queries. So as an example of that, when somebody searches for product roadmap, what they see at the top is this result that I've pinned as the subject matter expert. This is the document that everybody should be using when they share the product roadmap. In this case, I pinned it for the entire company, but I could have also chosen to pin it for a specific audience, like a team or a department. All right, so back to the example, I'm an engineer. I finally kind of made progress on onboarding, and now I'm starting to write code, but I get stuck with a technical issue. So now I can just search for how do you run Go unit tests, and the result at the top that you see here, this is actually what we call a Glean answer card. And the idea behind answers is that it's a way for subject matter experts to quickly document their knowledge in a place where other people can easily find it. Everybody's already searching on Glean, so you might as well put your documentation here. This means less time wasted answering the same questions over and over again. And it's also really easy and lightweight to create these. So you can create and edit them directly within Glean. And you can also import them from a Slack message and create them from there. All right, so I've done a little bit more work, and now maybe later in the day, I'm curious about how does our sales team talk about Glean? What are the types of materials that they send our customers? So I can go ahead and search for sales enablement, and the first result here is what we call a Glean collection. Collections are a way to curate key resources from across any of those apps that Glean indexes. So in this case, there's a lot here from Google Drive. There are also external resources, YouTube links. You could also put in things from Confluence, Jira, Salesforce, et cetera, et cetera. So this really gives you one single system to organize information across all of these different apps that you use internally. So we have customers who use this for sales enablement, for product documentation, for company policies and benefits, for new hire onboarding, and many more use cases. All right, and now let's pretend that I want to go ahead and share this URL with my teammates. I could send them this URL, but honestly, they're never going to remember it. So what I could do instead is create a Go link for this URL. And what a Go link lets you do is now, instead of having to remember this really long URL, I can just remember go/sales resources. And if I type that, I end up on this page. So as a couple of other examples, go/culture points to our company values document, and go/waiter is maybe, the most important one. It's how we order lunch every day. So essentially go links are a way to share these really memorable URL shortcuts so that everybody can remember where important information lives. All right, so now it's even later in the day, and I'm about to have my first meeting with Cindy, but I don't know who she is yet, so I kind of want to prepare a little bit for this meeting. This is actually a huge use case for Glean. Searching for people constitutes about 10 to 30% of our searches, depending on the customer. It's really a key way to help your employees stay connected, especially in a remote environment. So on the search page, I see a really nice profile card, and if I click in, I get more detail on how to contact Cindy, who she is as a person, where she sits in the org chart, as well as a bit about which teams she's on. So let's say I'm curious to learn more about the product design team. I can go learn more about them on this team page, which again, the team lead can come in and edit. You can say, what's the best way to reach us? Who are we as a team? And kind of who are the team members? All of this is also browsable through our directory, so you can see all the people at the company. You can filter down by department, location, things like that. All right, so the last thing I'll show you around people is, let's say, as an engineer, I'm about to go work on this collections feature that I showed you earlier, and I have a bunch of questions on it, but I don't know who to ask. And in a remote setting, it's especially hard to figure out who to ask about something. So I can actually just search for it in Glean, and then if I click on people, Glean can intelligently identify the people who write about this topic and are likely to be experts in it. So in this case, it's correctly identified Omar, who's actually the engineer that built all these features, as well as Rachel, who is the product manager for the collections feature. So that's kind of an overview of search, and hopefully that gives you a flavor for how powerful it is. Beyond search, as I mentioned earlier, Glean is also this intelligent work hub. We think of it as a portal into all of your company's digital information, or that broader intranet that I talked about earlier. It brings you all the information that you need and all the things that need your attention. So things like company and team announcements. For example, in this case, I've shared out our OKR planning timeline for quarterly planning. It can also intelligently suggest things that I've been working on recently so that I can quickly dive back into them, as well as things that are trending across my team or across the company that in many cases I haven't even seen before. So actually, I hadn't seen this Figma design before, and I'm curious to go take a look at it after this demo. And then we can also pin, key company resources for people to quickly access the things that they need. So in our case, we have our things like the employee handbook, our benefits portal, our expense policy, all of that quickly accessible in one place for people. And under the hood, by the way, this is powered by that same collections feature that I showed you as a way to quickly curate all of the important information that around your company. All right, so that's a really quick overview of the Glean platform. I hope that gives you a good sense for how it can really empower employees at your companies to work faster and smarter in a remote environment. All right, so yeah, excited to share that with you. There's a lot more that I didn't show in the interest of time. We do have mobile apps for iOS and Android. We offer a really rich set of insights and analytics into, like what are the knowledge gaps that are present in your company. For example, we have multiple entry points for search. So we have Slack and Teams bots that can intelligently answer questions for you in channel. We can also embed with one line of JavaScript into your intranet or Salesforce or Confluence or any other portals that you have. We also have rich APIs for both searching, so accessing the information, as well as indexing or pushing your information back into Glean. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we have solutions around data loss prevention, so detecting sensitive and overshared content. We're really honored and grateful to be trusted by many of the world's leading organizations here, including Okta, Databricks, Wayfair, Confluent, and many more. We're also really thrilled to just see the level of customer and user love that we're getting. That's really kind of the guiding principle behind what we do. Again, our goal here is to empower the modern knowledge worker with better tools. And on average, our users, our customers are telling us that we're saving them 2 to 3 hours per week. And they're also, they sent over some pretty glowing feedback as well. So a couple that I love is, Glean was an absolute godsend for me during onboarding, or hey, I just joined this company 10 years ago, after 10 years in tech, and I've never used anything as effective as this, or this is shockingly useful, or hey, this is the best decision that we've ever made for technology in this company. So, if this problem that I've described resonates with you and more importantly with your employees, and if what we've built looks interesting, we would really love to partner with you on this vision and on this journey, and would love to give you a custom demo. So just visit glean.com/demo, and we'd love to get in touch and tell you more about what we've built and how it worked for your company in particular. So thank you so much for your time. Always grateful for the opportunity to share our vision and what we've built with the world. And so with that, we'd love to dive into some Q&A.
Let's do it. Well, Alan, thank you so much. What an interesting presentation. I love the demo, and it's really intriguing to kind of dig into some of this stuff, and as I said, to think about the why behind some of these solutions. So thank you for kind of walking us through that and some of the impact. Ricky posted mobile apps, yes, with big, so he's very excited about that.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna jump into some questions here, but I do want to, before we do that, point out that we've put up a poll question for you here, and what we're really curious about is what is the additional information you would like about the Glean solution. So there's all kinds of options on here, all kinds of ways that Glean can follow up with you, but this is a great way to kind of make sure that you get the info that's going to best help you out. What are you kind of left thinking about at the end of this presentation? So click on that poll there, let them know, and it's just really helpful feedback for us as well in terms of where people are at as you start researching some of these solutions. So please do take a moment and fill that out. And while they're doing that, Alan, should we jump into some questions here?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, Mark here is wondering how you would consolidate all the software and systems, and he's wondering specifically if there's any limits.
Yeah, so if I understand the question correctly, are there any limits to how many apps or how many pieces of software I can connect? And the answer is no. You can connect as many apps as you would like, and we also do often work with our customers to develop new first-class connectors. And then if you have any custom or home-built data sources, we can integrate with those as well. We have, as I mentioned, APIs that let you ingest all of that data into Glean and make it searchable.
Perfect. Okay. Well, while we're kind of thinking about the ways that Glean is going to work for people and the number of apps. I love that. I love when an answer is unlimited. That's great. That's always exciting. What about for an organization? So we have a question here wondering about CRM. So is Glean going to integrate with their homegrown CRM?
Yeah, absolutely. Similar to the last question, because we have APIs that let you push data into Glean. For most apps that you use, we will have an out-of-the-box connector, but for any homegrown systems using our push API, you will be able to index that information into Glean as well.
Love that. And Mark says, wow, that's awesome. So thank you for your, I agree, Mark, that is awesome. Okay, so another question here. If Glean trains a language model on my company's data, are there security or privacy implications? Ooh, good question.
Yeah, that is a really good question. It's actually a very deep question. But the answer, is your company's data and all of the learned language models, the machine learning models, stay in your specific single-tenant cloud deployment. So your employees can get the full value of Glean's intelligence without compromising any company security. So there's never any data that leaves that, and there's no sort of, the language model doesn't apply across different companies.
Yep. Okay. Well, good answer. Good question. Good answer. Is there? Let's see. Oh no, we did that one already. Now I'm stepping over questions I've already asked. Do you have customers who would be willing to speak as a reference? Now, that's a good question. I have not seen that one before. Great question. Alan.
Yeah, absolutely. We have many customers who would be happy to share their experiences. I think maybe to protect their time, we would love to speak with you first, but after that, we can definitely connect you to a customer if you're considering purchasing Glean.
I love that. Now, and here's one that we do get quite a bit, but I think it's worth asking because it's always really helpful information, especially if somebody's out there doing a little bit of vendor research. So is there something that you would want to make sure that the audience knows is really unique and kind of makes Glean stand out besides? And I have to say, I love your mission. I love that mission. That really resonates, especially because enabling knowledge transfer is what we do here at Actual Tech Media as well. So that one really struck me, and I just want to give you guys a big high five for that as a guiding principle and core mission and value there. So thank you for starting your presentation with that. But besides that awesome mission statement, what is making you stand out the most?
Yeah, well, the high five is mutual. I really do, mean what I said. Like I'm just passionate about giving people better tools for knowledge. And I think one thing that makes us unique is we're really, laser focused on this enterprise knowledge graph problem. I think sometimes we talk to companies that try to build this on their own, like a homegrown search system, or maybe they were considering trying to build this on top of a more generic search platform. And it actually ends up being really hard because a lot of what we've built is so proprietary to this idea of this enterprise graph. It's very different from e-commerce search or web search or searching through your blog or customer portal. And so our technology is really purpose-built for this application, and in many enterprises where you have hundreds of millions of documents and 100,000 employees, being able to deliver that pinpoint relevance and personalize it to every person based on their role or location, et cetera, is really crucial for this to actually be useful and fulfill that mission that we're talking about. So I say that's really what sets us apart is the focus on this technology, this use case, and the layer of intelligence that we've built.
I really appreciate that because it is, it's important to have that vision, that mission, that goal, but you also need to be able to back it up with the right, opportunity, resource, solution. So it sounds like you guys you have your vision and you're living up to it. You're enabling that, and that's really exciting. I'm going to sneak in one more question. We're getting pretty close to time here, but Jeffrey has just asked, what is your average size installation and your large install?
Yeah, that's a good question. We are, there's a few different ways to think about it. One is in terms of maybe the corpus size. So we have deployments that are, again, over, 100 million documents, and there's really no limit that we know of in terms of what we can scale up to there, unlike maybe some of the other competitors. And then in terms of customer size, I think we're mostly in kind of the enterprise segment. So we showed you some of the logos earlier, but we do have a lot of customers in that enterprise segment.
Awesome. Love that. Okay. Well, I know that I can see that there's a few questions that we haven't gotten to, and we're going to have to leave it there. But I do want to let anyone know in the audience, if you did ask a question and we didn't get to it just now, we are going to make sure that Alan and the Glean team get that. I love that. Get the questions. So you will get a chance to hear back and get some answers. Also, please do fill out that poll if you haven't already. Another great way to make sure that you get the information that you need. Alan, that first step, that next step that people are going to take in order to get rolling here?
Yeah, visit glean.com/demo, and we'd love to chat.
Quick and easy. So if you do still have some urgent pressing questions, head on over to glean.com/demo. Did I get that right?
That's right.
Perfect. It's been the end of a long day, so I'm glad my brain's still working.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan. That was a really wonderful presentation. You're getting some high fives and a smiley face here from Ricky. And clearly, even though the audience has also had a nice long day, they are also really excited that you were here. So thank you for taking the time. Thanks for answering some questions. We really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. And thanks, everyone, for your time.
All right, and yeah, again, high fives to everyone who filled out that poll question. Please do make sure that you get that there. I'm also going to remind you all to check out the handouts tab if you haven't already done so, so you can learn a little bit more about Glean. Honestly, I really like this handout. It is quick, it is easy to follow, it is jam-packed with information. I like these short little punchy engaging pieces, so please do go check that out. It's right in the handouts tab. Again, click on the Glean link. And hey, you are probably saying to yourself, Jess, you haven't asked or given a prize away in a little while. And you know what, folks? You're right. I haven't. So let's do another prize giveaway while you're still filling out that poll and downloading that handout. So we're going to do another $500 Amazon gift card. Now, I'm going to remind you all that you do need to be present here live at the EcoCast in order to win. But I know you all are. You're here hanging out with me all day. So up next, our prize winner is Sharon McNeil of North Carolina. Sharon McNeil of North Carolina, you have won a $500 Amazon gift card. Congratulations to Sharon. Now, I do want to remind you that we do have one more prize giveaway that we will do after our next session, plus those best question cards from each session. So get those questions in. It's such an easy way to win an awesome Amazon gift card. Just ask a cool question, get a cool answer, maybe get a gift card. Who doesn't love that? And I'm going to remind you all that if you have won a prize today, we will be in touch after we wrap. And speaking of wrapping, folks, I do not know how this happens so quickly every year. Oh my goodness. Yep, as I said, long day. Every time we have one of these wonderful sessions, we get to the end and I feel like I'm just kind of getting started. I'm ready to keep learning. Luckily, we have a lot more learning here because we're going to chat with the awesome Teleport team, and I know that you are going to very much enjoy this presentation. So our next expert presenter is Travis Gary, IT Director at Teleport. Travis, I want to thank you so much for being here with us today as our grand finale. I am excited to hear some thoughts from you and the Teleport crew. So let's get right into it.
Hey, my name is Travis Gary, and I run the IT department at Teleport, a company that makes a modern privileged access management platform that promises to be the easiest and most secure way to access your infrastructure. And today I'm here to talk about remote work and the shift we all have to not just recreating the status quo of the office, but doing things better in the cloud that improves both security and employee experience. So I want to talk first about one of the biggest problems with remote work, and that's that you can't play ping pong anymore. Ping pong was one of the greatest highlights of the office. It was a great break for meetings, light exercise, and camaraderie. It's a fantastic solution to some of the woes we face from work from home today. So I figured let's ship every employee a VR headset, and that should solve the solution, right? We'll play virtual ping pong. Of course, this is ridiculous, but this is how most companies are treating the shift to remote work. Take what worked in the office and spending a ton of money to create an poor imitation online. So we used to say, work hard and go home. Now we need to say work effectively or be stuck at home. Employees don't want to play ping pong anymore. And I mean that both physically in the office. We want to be able to get our work done effectively anywhere in the world and then go enjoy our lives. But I also mean it metaphorically, because we are all too often playing ping pong, especially with the IT team. And I think one of the number one problems that remote workers face is they need access, and IT has to manually grant it, which results in this back and forth game of playing ping pong, of asking IT for something, them collecting approvals, them getting approvals, them manually provisioning the access, and finally granting the employee access. And that time taken is expensive. It both costs time for IT to do the work, but it also costs time in that you lost productivity from your employees who are waiting to get that access when it often blocks them from doing their work. So today I'm going to talk about some general principles as well as principles to run your IT department effectively for remote work, and then how to apply that to this really critical problem of access. And then I'll offer some solutions to that problem. So before we dive into that, why should you listen to me about this problem? So this is not just theories. These are things we put into practice here at Teleport and that I've picked up from both my education as an industrial engineer, which is really the historical engineering parent to DevOps culture, as well as my experience helping run DevOps teams, including a 24/7, 365 team at Airbnb, where we fought server incidents and had a global response team to respond to these. And these lessons also enabled us to work effectively remotely. And then, of course, the experience that I've gained here at Teleport, which has been a distributed company from the very beginning. So we were a little bit ahead of the curve in our own company culture and found a lot of success in these principles, as well as we designed our product to help enable this remote work future. So let's dig in. I want to look at first two remote work principles that I believe that you can apply to any sort of problem here, not just the problem of access and not just for the IT department. So those two simple principles are: one, don't jump to recreate the ways of working in the physical office. So what worked effectively in person doesn't necessarily translate well online. For instance, video meetings are, we know, much less effective than they are in person. And we could try and evaluate lots of solutions that maybe make video meetings better, but too often that means we overlook whether is a meeting really the most effective solution in the first place. We have to be really careful when evaluating new solutions, that we're not comparing them to measuring, here's what we did before in the physical office, and then measure, are we as effective as that? But taking a look at all possible solutions and measuring their effectiveness at the right level. We're not looking for effective meetings. What we're really looking for is look larger with your metrics, and that's look at, is employee productivity effective? So ultimately, you could have a culture that is the most effective, your engineers are working the most effectively and has little to no meetings. But you're only going to reveal that if you really look and say, hey, we don't want to recreate the ways of working in the office, and we make sure you measure new solutions using those high up metrics rather than getting too myopically focused on the small parts. So the other big remote work principle that I want to espouse is asynchronous. You want to do things that don't require that synchronous way of working, whether that's communication in like very synchronous meetings where you talk together and talk through a problem, or in the ways that we work with IT that or other groups where it's like, I need something from this team now in order to get my work done. So that just doesn't translate to the remote work. And one of the reasons is that we have people all over the world in different time zones. So this was a lesson I really picked up working on running a global team at Airbnb, that we, if we played this game wrong, we would be in meetings every day, early in the morning with Europe and late at night with Asia. And that really cuts on the employee satisfaction and slows down how much time we have to work together. And so what we learned, and this is also the lesson that Teleport has espoused in a lot of our values, is that we want to use less synchronous communication, more asynchronous. So long form thought is much better than a quick back and forth on Slack. Writing things down, like with good specifications that we keep in GitHub, rather than lots and lots of meetings, which make it really hard for people in all time zones to attend, and also really hurts employee satisfaction in the sense of we want flexible work schedules. People have lives, they have families, they have things they need to get to, and having a lot of meetings and things that require back and forth, this ping pong of synchronous activity, really makes it hard to schedule our happy, work-life balance. So how do we actually achieve that? So I think there's two main IT principles that you need to follow to achieve this. So one is focusing on employee enablement over service. So traditionally, IT has often worked as a service organization. So you might have had a physical IT desk that people walked up to solve their problems, or they communicated with IT directly in some sort of way. And often this has been replaced with first email and then Slack-based help desks and ticketing systems. But we're still kind of reinventing the physical world and also reinventing the problem rather than a solution. So, this problem gets even harder with a remote workforce where you're working in many time zones. Like a small company can't have a 24/365 IT team that's able to help employees right away when they need it, meaning you're probably blocking them from getting their productivity done. So it's best that we avoid the actual problem so employees never have to come to the help desk in the first place. If they've come to create a ticket, it usually means they have a problem. So making sure they never had the problem in the first place is the best. The second best thing you can do is enabling them to fix the problem themselves. So there are two tools you need to give employees to help themselves this. One is a knowledge base, so some sort of wiki, other written communication that shows, hey, here's the problems you might encounter, here's how you solve them, here's what to follow to help yourself. The second part is self-serve processes. So you need to give them access to fix their own problems. So if you do this right, then there's zero action that the IT needs to take. The person is able to look through your documentation, find their issue, and then they actually have access to solve the problem themselves. So this will save your IT team time as well as the other person. And so the only way you can enable this is using zero-touch IT processes. So this is where you need to automate everything. So making sure that, for instance, you could enable employees to ask for access, but even better than that would be you automatically grant them access. In either case, you need to build the automation that can give them access. So when it's granted, they're automatically given it, whether they get that access automatically on day 0, or they get it automatically via when they request it. So let's dig in specifically to solving the access problem. So there's a couple ways that you can do this. I mentioned you can grant access automatically. So these are often called birthright grants or attribute-based access controls, where we give the right access to the right people, based on attributes that they have. So this is often done with syncing your directory system, like Okta, to your HRIS system. So the HRIS would provide attributes like, this person's a manager, they're on this engineering team. For instance, they might be working on this specific project. You can use those attributes to then grant access via your directory system that says, hey, everybody on the web team is going to have access to these set of tools. That way, on their very first day of work, they're ready to go and ready to work. The other part is that you need to allow employees to quickly ask for access. Now, all your birthright grants may not be perfect. You may not know every single thing a person's going to need. Also, following the principles of least privilege, you may not want to grant access to everyone forever to all roles. For instance, certain admin roles maybe shouldn't be granted that they have it all the time. They should only be granted on a temporary basis, maybe even just for a day for them to complete work, or maybe only for a very specific amount of time, maybe while they're on call and working an active incident. They might need access to some infrastructure that they shouldn't have access to all the time. So you need to create a way for employees to quickly ask for access to applications and infrastructure. And preferably, you should do this through a system they're used to using, like Slack or the command line, or a nice friendly web portal, something that is quick and easy for employees to ask for. And you want to use approvals only when necessary. You don't want to burden the process with extra steps if you don't have to. So you should really be tight on approvals, looking at both your compliance burdens, where you might have to follow specific things for SOC 2 or ISO, or even Sarbanes-Oxley, to make sure that the right people have approved this access request, as well as security risks. You should consider what risks are inherent with granting this access, such as a privileged admin role or a database user, and make sure that the right people approve that. For instance, a database administrator, or your Salesforce administrator, whoever the right person is for that. And if you don't need those things, consider using a quicker way to approve access, either just instantly, employee asks for it, and thanks to the zero-touch IT processes you developed, they instantly get it without any interaction by any other human. So there's no delay, and you're really helping save money for your company and save frustration for your employees that they can get their work done. And when you do need approvals, make sure that it's quick and in a native platform. Again, that these approvers are maybe reached out to via Slack, that they can quickly approve this, as well as note on a time-based, a temporary basis of how long someone should have this role. Or consider really fancy ways of you can auto-grant access in certain circumstances, such as someone's on call and they need to work on an active incident, so they should be granted access to that infrastructure. So Teleport is one of the ways that you can solve that problem. There's a number of emerging identity access and governance products that allow employees to quickly ask for, get their access requests approved, and then provision the access. And Teleport is the leading way to do this for infrastructure. So prior to joining Teleport, this was a problem I was working on at Airbnb, which was very difficult to manage. We were managing SSH bastions, moving keys around, database passwords. It is a very hard problem to solve. And it is a problem that Teleport is specifically committed to solving, as well as following these principles that I just outlined. So, asking for access in a native communication channel. So you're able to access via Slack or via the command line if you're, for instance, working on a server incident. And you're able to get those approvals done quickly. Teleport has features to support that, like automatic approval while you're in a PagerDuty shift. So this is a problem that I think is uniquely solved by Teleport because of our really high approach to security. And saving your engineers time is one of the best, most cost-effective ways to make sure that you can run and scale with a lean engineering team, and also make sure that they stay happy. Not being able to get your work done because you put IT in the middle of a process really frustrates everyone and increased your costs. So I hope this overview helps your organization adapt to remote work while improving both security and employee experience, rather than trying to recreate the status quo of the office. Thanks for your time. Cheers.
Well, thank you, Travis. Thanks for such an interesting presentation. I really enjoyed the kind of, again, getting into the storytelling behind some of why we're doing these things. I think is really important, and especially with a topic like today, we're talking about workforce transformation. So yes, we're talking about solutions, but a lot of what we're talking about is education and how people use these tools, change management, a lot of those things that are, part and parcel with making any of these changes, implementing any of these solutions. So Travis, thank you again for that wonderful presentation. I do see that we've got some questions coming in. Unfortunately, this whole day has just gone a little bit long, and so we're a bit short on time. So we're going to leave it there for questions. However, I do want to assure you that any questions asked are going over to the Teleport team. So you are going to get reactions and responses back from them. So if you have questions, please make sure you get them in, because you will get answers back. And that's, again, a really great way to reach right out to the Teleport team. Now, another great way to reach out to the Teleport team is to fill out the poll that is on your screen there. So please do take a moment right now and let them know. I do see a lot of questions coming in, so I know you guys are looking for a little bit more information, wondering a little bit more about how this whole thing actually works. So we just got kind of a high-level review there. So dig in a little bit with Teleport. Let them know what information you want, and they will make sure that they hand it right to you. So fill out that poll. Now, while you're doing it, I'm going to give away one more prize in just a moment here. I do also want to remind you to head on over to the handout section and download the ebook. Now, this is an early release ebook. It's called Identity Native Infrastructure and Access Management, Preventing Breaches by Eliminating Secrets and Adopting Zero Trust. So do go check this out. It's really exciting, really interesting. It's a bit of a longer read. So our last handout was very short. This one's a little bit longer. So this one is maybe not your afternoon dinner reading. Maybe it's your sitting in bed with a good book reading this evening. So download this ebook, check it out, give it a good read. Again, that's Identity Native Infrastructure and Access Management, Preventing Breaches by Eliminating Secrets and Adopting Zero Trust. So please do go check that out. Now, I said the word prize. I know all your ears perked up, so let's do a prize giveaway. We're going to give away a $500 Amazon gift card. This is our fourth one here. I am going to remind you one more time that you do need to be present at the live webinar in order to win. And, okay, our next winner here of a $500 Amazon gift card is Share Her of Colorado. Share Her of Colorado, you have won an Amazon gift card. Congratulations. We'll follow up with you after we wrap. I'm going to read the entire prize list out here because I know everyone always wants to see a little bit of a recap. I do want to say Michael has already taken a look at the PDF and says it's definitely great, worth taking a look at. Thank you, Michael, for that, posting that comment. and the high five to the presentation as well. I will make sure that Travis sees that before they leave here. Okay, so the full prize drawings today are going to gift card number 1 went to Mike DeLeon of Utah. Gift card number 2 went to Matt O'Donnell of South Carolina. Gift card number 3 went to Sharon McNeil of North Carolina. And gift card number 4 went to Cher Her of Colorado. Congratulations to you all. Again, we will reach out and be in touch after we wrap. Now, I do want to remind you all that as much as we love having you here live at the webinar, we really want to keep that good feeling going. We want to connect with you. So connect with us on social media. Find us on Twitter and Facebook. We definitely want to hear from you. If you are looking for more awesome content right away, I'm going to suggest that you check us out on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel. There are lots of great on-demand webinars. If you can think of a topic out there in the IT tech world, there is a webinar waiting for you at the Actual Tech Media YouTube channel. So go check it out. Find a webinar on just about anything that you're interested in exploring and spend a little time with that. Please also find us on LinkedIn. Be sure to connect with us there. Lots of great content. We'd love to hear from you. And now this was mentioned at the start of our webinar here. A few of you missed it in the intro, but here we are. So if you have not already checked out the Gorilla Guide, this is a fantastic collection of resources. So please do that. Now you've already got one incredible PDF on your reading list. Make sure you add the Gorilla Guide Book Club to your reading list as well. You're going to get free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts. So you get to stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, hey, these books are going to work on your Kindle or your mobile device, and they are completely free. So make sure you download those awesome resources, all available to you at gorilla.guide. There's a link for you in that handouts tab as well. Now, if you are here on the EcoCast today and you're thinking, hey, this has been a lot of fun, I would like to get even more involved, spend even more time with Jess, Scott, and David, we would love that too. So, reach out to the team, get in touch. Let us know that you're interested in presenting on a future summit, an EcoCast, a MegaCast, a webinar, whatever you have in mind. We would love to hear from you. So you can find us at connect@actualtechmedia.com. All right, well, with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I really want to thank all of our speakers from Synology, StrongDM, Axis, Catchpoint, Okta, Duo Security, Glean, and Teleport for making this EcoCast possible. A very special thank you to all of you for attending, for asking some great questions. I have so much fun at these types of sessions, especially when I get to interact with all of you. And we started the day with a lot of really wonderful comments about, workforce transformation in general, workplace distribution, and how people kind of feel about these. I'm really curious to know if throughout the session you sort of held true to where you started and whether or not you think it's a good idea, it works, or how you're set up, or if maybe you've changed your minds a little bit and where you kind of ended up on that. So please do keep coming, keep participating, keep asking questions, because this is how we get an idea of where you are at. And Mark, Hitesh, I'm seeing some thank yous from you. Thank you on back to you both. So nice to see some wonderful interactions out there in the audience today. So again, the sessions are only as great as we all make them together, right? So thank you for being here and participating. I hope you all are walking away with some tips, some tools, some new ideas to bring back to your organizations. Please let us know if you have any cool remote success stories. We'd love to hear that. And before you take off today, be sure to mark your calendars and come back and join us again on Tuesday, October 25th for a MegaCast on battling the ransomware scourge. Ooh, I love that. Prevention and recovery. That kicks off at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. That is a big one, guys. We have a lot of incredible vendors, incredible presentations, incredible experts all coming together in one place. It's going to be a long day, but a very worthwhile one. So come on by and join us for that on the 25th, and we'll talk about the ransomware scourge. Good October theme for that. All right, well, I hope that I get to see you all again soon, and until that comes, I hope you all have an absolutely beautiful rest of your day.